The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Hey, what's up? This is Jeff Cobb, and you're listening to Keepin It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out in Barrio the Frogs. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll be discussing the preview for Castle Attack, answering your questions, and covering all this news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. You can support our show by subscribing to the Social Suplex Podcast Network or to Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the podcasts and columns over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pros and Tees store, prosandtees.com/socialsuplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. This week's episode is brought to you by the NJPW EXT, the only browser extension for NJPWworld.com with features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and shared playlists, synchronized viewing parties, and much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. Visit njpwext.us today for details.
Bianca Belair is the EST, whereas this is the EXT, if you catch my drift.
Oh, man. Don't know why that popped me so much.
I don't, yeah, I'm looking at you like, I didn't expect to get such a reaction from you, bro.
I don't know. It just popped me.
Man.
But yes, the EXT is the EST of extensions to watch NJPW World.
Oh, man. So it looks like we got a lot to talk about today. We got injuries and setbacks and 4 big shows on the horizon, back to back to back. It's a big week.
4?
Yeah.
Are you counting the Road Thursday's Road 2 show as a 4?
There's a title match.
Yeah.
And then Strong.
Yeah, and then the 2 Castle Attack.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were counting the Road 2 show.
Of course. Well, I mean, the last Road 2 show on the 20th was sort of like or was that the 22nd? Yeah, 22nd.
Yeah.
It was like the go-home show for that Road 2 show.
The go-home for the go-home.
Yeah, it was a go-home show for a Road 2 Castle Attack show.
And then Thursday will be the go-home to Castle Attack.
Yeah, the go-home for the go-home.
Yeah. Well, yeah, man, let's get into it.
Don't overcomplicate these things, Jerry.
Let's get into this. So, injury updates. So, we got 3 injuries to talk about here. So, first, the big one that was reported by New Japan, Hiromu Takahashi, going to be out an estimated 6 months due to a torn left pectoral. We have some questions here, but overall thoughts on Hiromu being injured, out for a minimum of 6 months.
Did you see where this occurred? Because I never noticed it.
I did not notice it either, which match it happened in.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's true. It could have actually have happened a while back, and maybe he's been harboring the injury.
Yeah.
I was just assuming it probably happened in the last match they had on, what was that, the 20... Yeah, that was the 22nd show, right?
Yeah, I think...
Or the 17th?
I think he was 17th, I think was his last show. 17 or 16 of his last show.
Okay. But I never noticed anything, you know? Like, there was never a giveaway like, oh, this man's shoulder or, you know, his pectoral is hurt. So I didn't... There was nothing, like, kind of giving away the fact that there was a serious injury there.
Right. I mean, he seemed fine in all the matches. He was doing, you know, making fun of ELPs, taunt, and kind of being normal Hiromu throughout this tour.
Yeah. And, you know, he was doing the gimmick where he brought out the cardboard IWGP Junior Heavyweight title. I think they're even doing like a challenge online where like to see if you could do the ELP dance like the best or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
But it's really unfortunate. I don't know, man. It's terrible, but it's also sort of like, I mean, it's just flat out, it's terrible. From a real world perspective. I mean, Hiromu was on the shelf for, over a year. What was it, a year and a half almost, something like that?
Almost, yeah.
With the neck injury, I think he's only been back roughly about a year, essentially, a little over a year. And then, he's out another 6 months. I know there's some people that are going to say he's like, who might have the feeling or disposition that he's injury prone based off this, but I don't think that's the case. But then again, he wrestles an extremely high octane, high risk, style, which, anyone that can see what he's doing knows that it's going to take its toll. So maybe this is his lot in life at this point.
It's that wear and tear, and just over time, things just rip and tear apart and break down.
Yeah. So, I mean, I hope that, I was on One Nation Radio last night, and, Rich made a joke. He's like, maybe he can hit up John Cena.
Yeah. Call up Cena, find out the strategy to come back in 3 months. Be ready for Dominion.
It's too bad there's a travel restriction, because I think like you can go to South America and get like shot up with a bunch of what are they called? Like, oh God, what is it called? Oh my God, what is wrong with me? I'm tired today. It's the stuff that like. That they can like shoot into your body. It's supposed to make you get better like super quick. It's like sketchy as fuck. Stem cells.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You could go get, because they don't give a fuck in South America. They'll give you like, way more stem cells than like they will in the States. I don't know if that would help, but maybe he could do that.
It's worth a shot.
Yeah. But it's unfortunate, man. I don't know. What are your thoughts? And I mean, how do you see this affecting everything? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a bummer. Hiromu has been one of the highlight performers, especially during the pandemic era. He was great in New Japan Cup, had the IWGP title match against Evil, gave Evil one of his best title defenses. He was the standout in the Best of Super Juniors that happened this past December during the World Tag League Tour. Top draw. He is the star of the junior division, and so there's definitely going to be a big gaping hole to fill with him gone for 6 months. And yeah, like you mentioned, it's just sad. And he's somebody that a lot of people are excited to watch, and he's been one of the main top in-ring guys throughout this pandemic since he's been back from injury.
I don't know how the fans were feeling about Hiromu. I mean, it seemed like, based off what we were seeing, the fans were still high on him. But at the same time, given everything with the state of emergency and these low attendance for these shows, it feels like we're kind of in a little bit of a lull right now, this period of New Japan. And there was a critical sort of lashback from his last, big main event that he had with show, which I think maybe was warranted for the match. But then it sort of like, they were retconning a lot of like, reviewers and pundits and stuff. They were kind of retconning his run, maybe like lessening the impact of it, lessening like his, overall sort of just impact that he's made. And I mean, for us, I think the past 2 months prior to this, he was like the wrestler of the month.
Yeah.
And he's one of the top wrestlers of last year. And, the one question I had going into this year is like, who was he going to wrestle, especially with the travel restrictions? Obviously, the ELP match was on the table, but after that, I kind of was like scratching my head. I mean, I know you could go back to Desperado, but beyond that, it seemed like his talent pool and like, challengers was kind of lacking a little bit.
Right. And that's something we saw, especially during Best of Super Juniors, and just looking at the junior division. We got tons of questions even before we found out there was going to be Super Juniors. Like, what are they going to do? Like, who are they going to bring in? Like, what's the junior division going to look like? Because they rely so much on the imports to bolster that junior division and have some great junior matches. And so, right now with Japan still being in a state of emergency and not being able to bring a ton of people over, that leaves the question, what are they going to do with the junior division? Even if Hiromu was healthy, what was the plan? Because there's only so many guys that they have domestically in New Japan that they use on their New Japan shows. I mean, I'm sure there's a ton of guys domestically they can use, maybe freelancers or other guys from other promotions, but as far as in New Japan, it's a pretty small lot that they have to work with right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's all going to depend on when they end up doing a Super Juniors. This past year they did it in November/December. If they go back more to the traditional like May, June timeframe, that's not that far away. And so they might need to start making preparations if that's the case. I've even heard some people say maybe they could move that up as a means to kind of fill the vacancy if there ends up needing to be one, which I'm guessing 6 months to maybe even longer. That sounds like they need to strip the title off of him for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
But one thing I was thinking is, and it's a silver lining, and it's not one that I'd advocate for, but the one positive that might come out of it is, well, A, hopefully he gets healthy, but then B, it does create a little bit of a power vacuum, and it kind of gives them an opportunity, meaning New Japan, their booking committee, to sort of establish some of these other junior characters as stars. Because right now, even though there's people that are popular like ELP and Show, nobody really feels to be on the same level as Hiromu Takahashi. And the last time he was injured, they had the same sort of situation. But what ended up happening was the guys they made were Shingo and Will Ospreay primarily.
Right, and you also had Dragon Lee there as well.
And Dragon Lee, yeah. And Dragon Lee ended up not, being able to be around nearly as much as they wanted him to be just because of the COVID situation. And then, Will and Shingo both moved up and went on to heavyweight, which kind of, again, created another power vacuum that instead of Hiromu coming back to a wide playing field, he came back and filled the void and has been like this giant sun that all the other juniors are sort of revolving around.
It was the Fresh Prince meme where, Will Smith comes home and like all the furniture's gone. That was Hiromu. He came back to junior division and was like, Shingo, Ospreay, where'd everybody go?
I didn't know which one you were talking about. I thought you were talking about like the cry face one.
Oh, no. it could be that, too.
But, so, I mean, this might give opportunity for guys like Robbie Eagles, ELP, obviously.
Yeah, we haven't seen Eagles since Super Juniors, right?
Yeah, no. I mean, he's had a couple matches over in Australia. I'm tracking the excursion matches, but one was intergender. I heard it was pretty good, actually. But, I mean, that's a guy that they could definitely, I assume would be able to bring back and push. Obviously, Show. Obviously, El Phantasmo, who came in with the most goodwill coming out of last year's Super Juniors for 2021. Yeah, 2021. But I don't know what's going to happen here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of juniors that are on New Japan Strong right now. Guys, hopefully, maybe they can bring some of those guys over. Leo Rush, Ray Horace. Some of the guys that they're using there.
I think it kind of depends on what New Japan is intending long term, because it feels like most of those guys are sort of seen as just like they're the U.S., the ragtag U.S. guys that we will push, we'll use, but they're not going to Japan necessarily. Right. That might change. Leo Rush does feel like one of the names they might end up investing in, and we've seen them bring TJP over in the past. I'm wondering why Amazing Red's not on that show, by the way. That's kind of strange.
I know, Red's kind of disappeared since the pandemic happened, so I don't know what's going on there.
Maybe he's just being a good human being. I don't know.
Yeah. You also got guys like Clark Connors that you can use.
Ren Narita.
Narita.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens here. Looks like we got a lot of questions regarding this, though.
Yeah, so first from Reddit user PSan91, what do you think they will do with the junior heavyweight title? Will they strip Hiromu as he's going to be out for 6 months?
Scott Rand also asked, what do you guys think will be the plan to crown a new junior champion? Possibly move up best of the Super Juniors, is that a possibility? And is this next question also in line with that stuff, or is it a little different?
It's about Hiromu. Viking Payne asks, with the loss of Hiromu for about 6 months, do you guys think New Japan will opt to use available Japanese freelancers or push harder to get more foreign talent into the country to bolster the juniors division Four foreign talents I can think of are Robbie Eagles and Dragon Lee, who seem like shoo-ins for a return. Marty Scurll, who's a free agent, and it seems like they're teasing a Best of Super Junior run with Leo Rush with his recent backstage interview.
Yeah, so some great questions here. As far as what I think they're going to do, this is just my general feelings, and this is a little bit of a spoiler alert. We're going to get to it here in the review. It seems as though this coming Thursday they're doing a. Was it announced officially?
It's announced officially. So yeah, this Thursday it was supposed to be ELP and Taiji defending the junior tag titles against Hiromu and Bushi. Obviously, with Hiromu hurt, that match has been changed. Desperado and Kanemaru attacked ELP and Taiji and challenged them, so it's now official.
Yeah, so it's a rematch for the IWGP Junior title. We kind of originally thought that was the original direction they were going to go before they involved LIJ with Bullet Club. That being the case, it seems to me like Desperado is the automatic person that you would put into a junior title feud with El Phantasmo. So I think that that remains to be seen whether they're going to vacate the title and put it up on the line in time for this weekend. They haven't really announced that. If it was me, that's what I would do.
Right, and maybe they're waiting till the end of the road. Like maybe Desperado they win the titles. Desperado pins ELP, and he's like, "Hey, you were supposed to get a junior title shot. I just pinned you. I think I should be in the junior title match."
Yeah, and I was predicting personally that LIJ was going to win the junior titles on this tour anyways.
Right, I thought they were going to swap the belts.
Right, so I think that they could swap here, and then that could potentially set up that title match. Either way, I think they've got to strip the title off Hiromu. And there's probably some people listening that are thinking of, for instance, the Jon Moxley situation, Mm-hmm. And in that case, they created a briefcase. They created like a tournament to determine his title. So essentially, basically an interim title that was defended until they were able to end that, that briefcase situation, which is coming up Friday. And I mean, it took 6 or 7 months for that to happen. I'm not a big fan of that. I would not like if the Super Junior winner, like let's say they move up Super Junior and the winner is carries the trophy and then, we'll face him for the title when he comes back at whoever, who knows whenever that might be. It could be 6 months, it could be 9 months. I think that's a bad way to go. I don't even think they should have kept the title on Jon. I understood why they did it for business reasons. The one thing I think is different here is with Jon, it was a travel restriction thing and maybe business as well. But had something changed, there might have been a possibility that they could have moved it up at any point,
Right.
But with this is kind of a definite timeline. We know it's going to be probably at minimum 6 months. And with that kind of guarantee that it's he's out and we don't know when he's coming back, I think you got to take the title off him.
Yeah, and I think aren't the New Japan kind of their rule? Isn't it the title defense 6 months?
I think it's shorter than that, but normally there's a rule, but they broke that rule for Jon Moxley.
Well, for COVID, they said that they were extending the title defense, whatever rule for during COVID.
What they did was they said they extended it out to a certain period. They said while they were shut down, here's what the rule was. While they were shut down, that entire time frame did not count
towards their... Yeah.
But then they started the clock again, and they definitely ran out on Jon Moxley, and they just went silent on the thing and chose not to strip him for business reasons.
Right.
They broke their own rule. We've seen times where they've stripped people with swiftness.
Immediately.
Immediate.
Oh, you're sneezing?
Yeah.
Snatch.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think they do need to, in this situation, I think it is, especially with the fact that we don't know what's happening with the IC title at all. This is a title that they've kind of established as something that is a highlight and a draw. They probably need it in circulation anyways.
Yeah. And I don't think they should move up Best of Super Juniors for this. I think the best thing to do is to just go ahead and do Desperado and Kanemaru this Sunday. Or excuse me, Desperado and ELP this Sunday. Get a new champion that way, and then...
Well, we saw the last time Hiromu got injured and dropped the title, they did a 4-way single elimination tournament.
Yeah.
And kind of went that way. So, I mean, they could hypothetically do a mini tournament of some sort if they really wanted to, especially with, you know how they love to do tournaments. They did a lot of tournaments last year, so they might be like, oh, this is opportunity to get a little junior tournament in.
Right.
So that's a possibility.
Yeah.
As far as his the question Viking Pain asked, though, he had some questions about, kind of about like the power vacuum that we sort of mentioned, and what do we think they're gonna do? And I think he threw out some interesting things there. Guys like Robbie Eagles, Dragon Lee, potentially Marty Scurll, people like that, Leo Rush, who are like outsider, some of those guys that are outsiders that they could bring in to kind of try and bolster things. We also threw some names out, but then, there is the possibility that with COVID situation, they might not be able to do so much of that, being in a state of emergency. And I mean, what do you think is going to happen? You think that we're going to see surprises like that, or do you think they're going to focus more on the Watos, the Shows, the Kanemarus, Taguchi?
I think it just all depends. Because I mean, it's still some time away. It's still a couple months away. Things could get a little bit better. Borders could open up a little bit more. I mean, we are seeing some U.S. guys come over. We're seeing Bullet Club, GOD going back and forth. Chase Owens went back and forth. ELP back and forth. So we're seeing a couple guys who have gone back and forth, even in the midst of the state of emergency. So that gives me some hope that maybe we can see some of these strong guys come over for that tour.
That's interesting. So I wonder how they've been able to travel. Maybe there's something to that Kenny story. New Japan got pulled when it comes to the international travel,
Yeah,
But let's move on. Let's talk about the other unfortunate injury. It may or may not be quite as serious. Kind of depends. That's Tetsuya Naito.
Yeah, so Naito suffered a knee injury on the February 16th Road 2 show in Tokyo and has missed a couple shows. He did say at the beginning of the last Road 2 show that he will be wrestling on February 28th for the IC title against Kota Ibushi in Osaka.
Well, let's just start off here. Viking Pain asked a question. He said, let's say Naito's injury is worse than we thought, and they had to take him out of the IC title match. Who would you guys like to see as a suitable replacement to challenge Ibushi for the IC title? And, that would benefit from an IC title run. So, if they did decide to do that.
Yeah, I think the most logical answer and the best answer is probably Shingo.
Shingo makes the most sense.
Yeah, Shingo has a win over him from the G1. There was Ibushi teasing Shingo with the titles during the New Beginning tour. Shingo's in LIJ. We've seen Shingo main event with the Never title. You can easily have him main event Chill with the IC title. And I think he's the perfect guy to kind of be that 1B champion.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to even honestly kind of like mess around, because I think that's the exact right answer. I mean, I could throw out someone else. I could throw out a Jeff Cobb. I could throw out a Ospreay, Ishii, whatever. But I think for what they're looking to do and the story and the elements and the setup, I think that's the perfect answer. As far as the injury goes, so when I watched this, I didn't see the initial cause of the injury. What I noticed was the botched swinging DDT, where Kota Ibushi basically ate it because Naito's leg gave out, and then he stayed down just selling his knee. And I kind of thought that that's where it originally originated from, but I didn't see any serious pain. And they hadn't really been working his leg at all. In fact, they'd been working Ibushi's leg
Right.
the whole match. So I was like, is he just selling really hard to mock Ibushi? But then he stayed down for a while, and I was like, what is going on? And then I saw the actual video from earlier in the match that I didn't catch with the Nagata roll. Oh
yeah, dude, rolled right into the knee. I remember watching it. I was like, oh, that didn't look right. But then he finished the match. I was like, all right, maybe he'll be okay. But then when you watch it slow down and see, it did not look good at all. It could have been a potential ACL tear. But I mean, Naito, he's been walking around, and he said he's competing on Thursday.
But here's the thing. There are variations, and I'm not a doctor, but there are varied degrees of how bad an ACL tear can or cannot be. And I've known lots of people, especially we're in our 30s, so I've had lots of friends over the years that have torn ACLs, and I've seen them walk around and to some extent be kind of active on them. you know, and it's sort of like, it's always one of those things you ask someone who has it. Well, there's always that dilemma with people that have ACL tears. Do you go and get the corrective surgery, which you need to, because it won't really get better, or do you not and just kind of tough it out? Because a lot of people do that and just have a bad wheel but can stand on it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So, like, to me, the fact he's walking on it doesn't tell me anything. And we don't know necessarily that it's an ACL tear, but once I saw the video and I saw what happened, and just to kind of give you guys a breakdown, it was a situation where Nagata hit the ropes and he was supposed to do a roll through and missed Naito, and it looked like I think it was Nagata's fault, to be honest. Either that or Naito was standing in the wrong spot. It's hard to know.
There was some miscommunication somewhere.
Yeah, and he rolls right into Naito's right leg, and the leg literally bends inwards. It looks like the entire leg popped out of the socket. And being a fan of MMA, I've seen a lot of ACL tears. That looked like an ACL tear. And the moment that, like, our friends watched it, who are like football fans, they all were like, "That's an ACL tear." So I mean, I'm like, once I saw that, I was like, "Oh, he's not wrestling. This title match is off." But apparently, it's not.
Right. He's competing on Thursday on the Road 2 show, and he's set to compete on Sunday.
So maybe they're going to do the match, try to work around it to the best of their ability, and hopefully, maybe if it's very serious, he's going away to get surgery or to get treatment. There is the possibility. There's probably people listening, and they probably are saying, like, there is the possibility that it's not that serious.
Right.
I've just never seen anyone's knee do what it did and it not be serious.
Right.
Ever in my life. Like, I would bet hard, serious money he's got a very serious knee injury right now.
Yeah, and we already know his knees were in a bad state already, so a move like that didn't make anything better. So, I mean, I guess we'll see what happens Thursday and Sunday, see how he moves around. And
we've seen a lot of wrestlers in New Japan stick around, most famously Tanahashi with his myriad of different serious injuries throughout the years. But we've seen guys who've had, who've wrestled hurt. And yeah, that's part of the business. I mean, everyone kind of is wrestling hurt to some degree. But in New Japan, for whatever reason, a lot of guys stick around when they're really hurt. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like, that's the thing. If someone misses a match in New Japan,
that means they're really hurt.
Yeah. And sometimes they come back quickly, but I mean, without treatment, it's not like whatever that ailment was, it just goes away. They're just wrestling hurt, basically. So I think that this is extremely serious, personally. I mean, we don't have a official word or anything like that, but I mean, the fact that he missed these last two matches, I think they're just trying to salvage the gate that's coming up, and, because they're already in the midst of this story. It is very ironic, though, that the whole story of the match they had was about how they were working Ibushi's leg, and then Naito actually injured his leg. But on top of his real injury, he was doing a fake worked mockery of an injury to make fun of Ibushi's worked injury. It's like super meta. Like, just to make it simple, Naito's leg's actually hurt, but he's pretending to have a hurt leg, but be fine, to make fun of the fact that they hurt Ibushi's leg.
Right.
But in all actuality, Naito's the guy who's got the bad wheel. I don't know. And it kind of seems funny, too, because he was also mocking Nagata and Hama and the dads and stuff like that earlier on in this tour.
Right.
And mimicking the fact that they don't move around so well.
Right.
And now he's got a bad knee. Like,
karma.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
So one last injury that not a lot of people talk about has been Will Ospreay. He's been suffering with a right shoulder issue that he's been rehabbing. He was back in action also on the February 14th Road 2 show, and has been on the rest of these Road 2 shows. So he has tape on his shoulder. He's been nursing it, rehabbing it. But yeah, another guy that's kind of hurt during this Castle Attack tour.
Yeah, I haven't noticed too much with Will and him having a shoulder issue or anything like that. But this one to me wasn't really one that kept him out, because it wasn't like he got canceled off any shows.
The Empire just wasn't on shows.
Right.
And it does help now that they've mainly been 6-man tags, so he hasn't really had to do a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah, and then plus they've been working with, Tanahashi and, Tenzan and Young Lions.
Yeah.
So it hasn't really been that intensive for him or anything like that either. But, hopefully that's something that gets resolved quickly too.
Yeah. So we had a question here from Viking Pain. He says, I know that COVID has really messed up the wrestling world, but these recent string of injuries plaguing the Castle Attack Tour, would it be smarter to book less shows in the future to minimize wear and tear, even with a loss in revenue, or continue forward and chalk us up to a random case of bad luck?
That's hard to say because I'm not I don't know their business. I don't know what they need to make their nut. So, I mean, the other thing too is like, it could be wear and tear long term, which I think you'd be foolish to deny that that's a likelihood. But at the same time, a lot of times where guys are non-active, they get hurt. They come in cold after being, off for a long time, and then they get hurt more easily. Sometimes staying active actually helps you to avoid those injuries.
Right.
The other thing too, we just don't know what their business really needs at the end of the day.
Right. They lost a lot of money last year, and the beginning part being off for all that time, from what was at the end of beginning of March to June, missing those months of shows.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. The other point I was trying to make was that sometimes guys just get hurt in freak accidents, and it doesn't have anything to do with, inactivity or activity. I've seen guys get hurt on a forward roll, something that is inconsequential. We saw that with Yota Nakajima, is that his name?
Oh, the young lion.
Yotu Nakajima, is that his name? I'm going to have to learn it.
Yeah, I'm blanking on it. Is it Nakashima or something like that?
It might be Nakashima. Yeah, I don't know. But, he just posted the wrong way, and someone landed on his arm, and it came out. That stuff like that just happens.
I mean, Pac, before he left for AEW, he did a baseball slide and messed up his ankle.
Yeah. So, I mean, you just never really know. But as far as the business of New Japan, I mean, they're not right now in the position that many of the US based companies like AEW and WWE are, where they're getting rights fees and advertising fees and that sort of thing, and that's driving their business. We're finding that obviously US wrestling and Japanese wrestling, completely different animals, completely different goals and aspirations, but over in the States, they make so much money from the ad revenue and everything like that they're finding that touring is actually an expenditure that's unnecessary and not necessarily good for their business. Whereas New Japan is strictly a touring business at this point. I mean, yeah, they make money from World and, they do have TV deals, but
it's nothing compared to the big Fox money contracts, the contracts that AEW is getting from TNT. We're seeing that these contracts are the lifeblood of these American promotions now.
Well, and I don't even know enough about Japanese business to know if that's even how the TV and entertainment industry works in Japan. So I couldn't say that, but all the stuff they're making from their other revenues it really does pale in comparison to what they primarily make from touring. The live shows, the big shows that they do, Wrestle Kingdom, Dominion, G1, all these shows, that's how they make the majority of their income.
And that's the reason why they started doing 2 nights of Wrestle Kingdom, 2 nights of this show, 2 nights of that show, making New Japan Cup 32 men to 16 so they can do more shows, so they can drive more revenue.
And this is something we talked about a few weeks ago. I said, unfortunately, they've got a problem where they are expanding the amount of shows that they do because they have to, because they can't draw as many audience members and fans as they normally would. So to make up for that, they're doing more shows, but because they have a great talent roster but less people to work with, they're spreading themselves very thin, and it's literally kind of diluting the quality of the product. And we've seen that on this tour, I think, to a certain extent. I think they're doing the best they can, but that's my way of answering. I don't know if it would be smarter to book less or not. I mean, I guess it depends on what kind of value they see overall. Would it be better to have the wrestlers work a little bit less, and invest in the wrestlers, but then long term, maybe they can, have those guys, healthy, but they don't make money when they don't run shows.
Right.
On the other hand, they might need to run the shows to keep everything afloat and to keep things moving forward and, to keep Bushiroad happy. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, I'm just glad I'm not in their position to have to make that choice.
Well, and hopefully they've got business people who are of the right mind and business minded who know what to do here because they kind of know their books, they know their business, and they know the market and everything like that.
Yeah. We also had a question here from Rambo and Slam Pig. With Hiromu expected to be out for 6 months, Naito possibly injured as well, and Evil leaving the unit last year, is it time for LIJ to look for a new member or two? Anyone outside the company or any young lions who you think would be a good fit?
That's a possibility. I mean, I don't know. I think that I made the bold prediction last year that I said 2021 would be the first year in many years that LIJ would not be
Faction of the year.
The faction of the year, the primary driving force in this company. I mostly based that off of my thinking that they were really going to go heavy with this United Empire, which I think they are, but I didn't count on the idea that there'd be this many, injuries and things like that. They still have Bushi, Sonata, and Shingo. And, 6 months is some time, but it's not a lot of time. And hypothetically, if Naito either continues to wrestle hurt or maybe rehabs or goes to a much more limited schedule, I don't necessarily see a reason to add more members.
Right, yeah. I think they can still run it pretty strong with Sonata, Shingo, Bushi. Maybe you try to bring in one other guy. I don't know.
I can't think of who, though.
Right.
There is the weird conundrum where there's these other Ingobernables groups.
In that Ring of Honor.
And all over Mexico, too.
Right, yeah.
And is there one in MLW, too? No, I don't think there is.
No, there's not. Well, not yet.
So, I don't know, man. I honestly couldn't think of anybody that I would want to see join the group that's out there. There is Shota Umino, maybe.
Yeah,
you could do that.
Yeah.
It's a possibility, but I don't know. There's no one that I've ever thought, like, man, they got serious LIJ energy, They need to be rolling with Naito and them sitting in the family restaurant,
Right, yeah. There's nobody currently on the roster. Potentially, there are young lions. I guess you could graduate and put in that role.
One of my biggest things is LIJ has always been exclusively Japanese. And I think they should keep it. Well, actually, it's not true. Remember, briefly, very, very briefly, Jay Lethal was part of the group.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But, primarily most of the members who are the actual real members, not counting Los Ingobernables, back in CMLL and all that, like, they've all been Japanese, and they all do a Mexican gimmick, which I think is, like, the whole point of the group. So, to me, that you need to kind of keep it that way.
Right. I think you'd have to try to find some kind of some luchador to bring in.
Well, when you say luchador, you mean a Japanese luchador? Because that's what I'm saying. I'm saying it needs to stay Japanese.
Yeah.
That's why I threw out, like, Shota Umino. I don't think it would make sense to bring in, like, say, Dragon Lee into the group or something.
Right.
Although that he has the most connection of anybody. But
right. Hey, have Doki switch sides.
No. You could. No, but he thinks they're hipster.
Right.
They're hipster luchadors. Like, that wouldn't work.
Right.
All right.
Moving on to Dom Homie 101 has a series of questions
Got a
here.
lot of questions about this stuff.
Yeah. So he says, with both Naito and Hiromu dealing with injuries, do you guys think maybe New Japan could step back and cut back on the amount of shows to make sure the roster can get run down to the ground? So we just kind of pretty much answered that. Also, thoughts on New Japan maybe working with companies like All Japan or Dragon Gate to bridge the gap with these injuries.
I'm a big fan of it. Like, I would love for them to kind of extend the olive branch and
open the doors.
Yeah, open. That's the forbidden door I want to see open.
Open the gates.
Yeah, open the gates. And even if it was just on, in the past when we got, like, guys like Nakajima and God, what's wrong? I'm just like forgetting names and stuff tonight. Marufuji, when they like worked in the G1, that was like one of the last times I really remember, outsiders in Japan come over. And then, I guess they had some of the Noah guys on those G1 tours. I love that stuff, They just had Shima win the All Japan junior heavyweight title. Like, I would love to see Shima work juniors. That would be fucking dope,
Yeah.
Or like Mochizuki or something like that. Or,
And we've seen Dragon Gate juniors in the past work Best of Super Juniors.
I mean, I'd be open to anything. Personally, this is just me speaking. Big Japan, All Japan, DDT, Noah. I don't give a fuck. Like, freedoms. Let's do it. But, that's my, like, feeling. I don't think New Japan sees any of those other groups as being, like, on the level, really.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, for them, I think it would have to come to a very desperate point to potentially work with these other promotions. But, I mean, I'm down for it, and I think it would be cool just to get some fresh matchups, get some fresh people in some of these tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of upside, especially just given what's going on.
Yeah.
Second part of his question, it's time for some hot takes. Hot take number 1. It sucks that Hiromu Takahashi will be out for 6 months, but there's light at the end of the tunnel due to the opportunities that the other juniors will get. The division just can't be Hiromu Takahashi show, and it's time for other juniors to step up to the plate, start hitting some home runs, and it's time for the company to maybe get behind some guys and pull some triggers, which is exactly how I feel.
Yeah, that's how you mentioned earlier, and we talked about this off air too. Yeah, they need to create some more stars because Hiromu it's literally Hiromu and friends right now.
One thing I said on One Nation Radio last night, I spoke about how I don't see him going heavyweight. A lot of people think he's going to have this like lauded heavyweight run just based on his star power and his talent, and his skill, and everything like that. I personally see him as more of a Liger character based on his stature, his frame, and his kind of lack of a muscular build. Like, Sho is about the same size, but like to me, he's more believable as a heavyweight,
right? Based
on his actual physique. And, I guess the trade-off there is like Hiromu's got all the charisma in the world. I just don't see. I know that he can have great, compelling matches with heavyweights, but I don't think the company will ever see him that way. I think that they see him as a top star attraction in the junior division, the same way that they treated Liger and Tiger Mask, and that's kind of what his role is going to be.
Right. And every once in a while, you can put him against a heavyweight and do some like open weight stuff, but he's not going to be a permanent fixture there.
That's my feeling. I could be wrong on that, and I wouldn't be opposed to being wrong on that. That being said, he needs dance partners. He needs compelling stories, compelling opponents. And right now, I mean, we're a far cry from, the glory years when he had Kushida and he had
Kyle O'Reilly.
Yeah, all these different
Ricochet.
guys. Marty Scurll, Will Ospreay. The guys that he like was able to, and Dragon Lee. So it's not quite the same right now.
Then his hot take number 2, star ratings don't matter, and people need to relax when it comes to star ratings. Star ratings are just opinions, and it's not facts. But it's funny to see people be angry as fuck over star ratings. Also, people need to stop trying to be wrestling critics and just be wrestling fans again. It's just entertainment at the end of the day. It's okay to think something sucks, but don't be threatening or cursing people out if they don't agree with you. Also, fans need to stop with the I am better than you attitude towards other wrestling fans. We are in the same boat at the end of the day.
Okay, I'll just say this. There is truth to what he's saying, in a very nihilistic sense. Star ratings don't matter the same way that like a lot of stuff in life ultimately doesn't matter, but we create some of these constructs to add value or to add enjoyment to whatever it is that you like. And so while I don't think star ratings are always the end-all be-all, they're very indicative of the overall quality and perception of a match. And to me, wrestling's not just entertainment.
Right.
To me, it's stage, drama, theater, and art. I do see it as being higher than just this lowbrow perception that people have of it. I think it's one of the greatest forms of art that's ever been, to be honest with you. And so for that reason, the same way, like, I'm a cinephile. I really like movies. When I go to watch a movie, I always check Rotten Tomatoes. I always check Metacritic. Now I don't always agree, but it is a good indicator of the overall perception. And, there is a fallacy that, like, just because a majority rule feels a certain way, that makes it the case. That's not true. So just because a match is 100%, lauded by everybody doesn't mean for sure that the majority is right. But statistically speaking, more often than not, they are going to be right. And that's a good way for you to kind of figure out whether or not it was good. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it does spark debates. And I do think people take it a little too far sometimes. And, I don't believe in being disrespectful, but at the same time, I'm not entirely opposed to the whole thing about I'm better than you. Of course, I don't think anyone should be like, high-minded, but sometimes, like, I got to tell you the truth. I've had conversations with wrestling fans where I realize we're not talking about the same stuff at all.
Right.
Like, we're not on the same wavelength. Like, they don't understand business aspects of wrestling. They don't understand history of wrestling. To them, they watch it very casually, and to me, it's not like that. And so I can't even engage or have a real conversation. And so I don't think everyone's in the same boat at the end of the day. I think there is a wide spectrum of fandom. I really do.
Right. You have the hardcore fans like us, guys that are doing podcasts, writing for sites, reading The Observer, watching every Road to show, watching every piece of wrestling, analyzing the business, and kind of that high end side of the scale. And then you have your guys that are super casual. They watch wrestling. They're not really going on message boards or dirt sheets and getting extra news, and it's kind of have like a surface knowledge of kind of what's going on.
And the one thing I will say is, at the end of the day, I pretty much agree with the spirit of what Dom Homie 101 is trying to say. He's trying to basically say this stuff isn't as important as being a good human being. Right. A lot of times people can be pieces of crap when they're engaging over something that in the grand spectrum of life is trivial. And that is true. But, I do take it seriously at the same time.
Yeah.
So,
star ratings are not a game.
Yeah, to me, star ratings are not a game. They're not a game. I don't play.
Oh, man. Yeah, Josh will be real quick to correct somebody on a star rating. Oh, man. So, moving on, we're going to get ready to talk about Castle Attack. But
we got another question.
I know. There's a question that I felt would be a good lead-in to talk about these Road to Castle Attack shows, and then preview Castle Attack that came from Reddit user Dramatic Post 7495. Says, a bit of a long one, but I'm just not excited for New Japan at the moment. The in-ring is still good, and there will be plenty of decent stuff on these shows, but it isn't getting my blood pumping. Is this a me problem, or are you feeling the lull? Is there anything COVID safe that NJPW could do to spice things up without getting into the crazy fantasy booking? Sorry for the bummer question. Keep up the good work. Look forward to your show every week.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I think it's a great question. I agree pretty much with the majority of what he said there. We're going to do the review, so, I don't have anything to really add to it. I agree with what he's saying. The one thing I would say is, when we talk, he did say, is there anything that they could do to spice things up without getting into crazy fantasy bookings? I feel like crazy quote-unquote fantasy, I don't know what he means by that, but, like, I do feel like bringing in some outsiders, potentially, especially if it's done moderately, with angles to set up future programs that will be played out in the next tour or tournament, that would be cool. And that's something that they could do pretty easily, I believe. The other thing is they could change things up. We've become very accustomed to how things run in New Japan with after this tour, it's this tour, after this tour, it's this tour. It becomes very monotonous, robotic.
Yeah.
And there is some value to that structure. But at the same time, with the fact that we are in this COVID situation, we saw them make a lot of changes last year. They might want to consider doing some new, fresh, and exciting things. Last year got a lot of flack, but like them doing juniors against heavyweights was really cool. Different things like that. So
yeah, and I definitely agree with Dramatic Post 7495. I have been kind of feeling that lull A lot of Road 2 shows. We're getting some empty Corkin Hall buildings. They had to put, the black, tarp up with the lion mark to help cover up some of the seats. And I understand it's a state of emergency. It's already minimum capacity. They're, trying to be safe, but it's still, you just lack that energy.
There's no energy.
Yeah. I mean, the few fans they're clapping, but it's coming off just really dry right now.
You know how they said you need to scream with your hearts? Well, they're not screaming loud enough with their hearts because I'm not feeling it.
Yeah, and a lot of it too is just some of the feuds is stuff that we've kind of been seeing or it's continuing on. It's
like we talked about, they only have so many guys to work with, and they're trying to do as much as they can to get through this tour so that they can get to, once we get to New Japan Cup, we're getting fresh stuff.
Right.
So this is just a holdover pretty much.
Yeah.
And typically we'd be at New Beginning right now.
This would be the start of New Beginning, or I guess the ending of New Beginning.
Because New Beginning would have been Fantasticomania. And also we probably would have maybe got that ROH show.
Oh, Honor Rising.
Honor Rising like we traditionally do too. I think that's after this?
Yes, Honor Rising is usually at the beginning of, I think, the middle of February.
Okay, yeah. Maybe not. Maybe March. I don't know. But anyways, so yeah, they're spread thin.
Yeah.
They're doing the best they can.
So we're going to talk about, there's 2 Road 2 shows that happened the last time since we recorded on the 17th and the 22nd.
That was 14, 15, 16, 17. So that's one thing I'm not a big fan of. It's just like boom, 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 boom,
Right, let's space them out, man.
Yeah, give us some time and space. God.
So we'll talk about the 17th, 22nd, take a look at what's coming up on the 25th, and then give our official predictions for Castle Attack Night 1 and 2 on the 27th and 28th. So I'll run through these results pretty quickly, and then I think there's a couple questions in some of these matches, and then we'll go from there. So on the 17th, we opened up. We had United Empire, Great Okan, Jeff Cobb, and Will Ospreay defeating Gabriel Kidd, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and Hiroshi Tenzan. Question from Dundiesel86. He says, is Jeff Cobb in line for some kind of push? He's been getting most of, not all the picks for the United Empire on the Castle Attack Tour. Granted, he's pinning mostly young lions. I just find it interesting that neither Ospreay or O'Connor are scoring the wins. I think Cobb looks like an absolute monster. He seems to be in phenomenal shape. It's really starting to do well with the Japanese style. What do you guys think his ceiling is in NJPW?
Great question. Yes, I do think that they are getting ready to, this is a push of some sort. Now, whether that is going to extend to an elevation, meaning like title challenges, things like that going far in the New Japan Cup, I can't say, but they're definitely doing a good job of giving him rehabilitation wins, just like we saw with Kojima getting all the tag wins back at World Tag League at the end of last year. And he's not alone in this. I think that's been one of the big stories of this tour, are particular individuals in certain matches getting a lot of wins to kind of rehab them. And so Jeff's kind of in that boat. He does look like a monster. He's been doing really awesome. And I think his ceiling is probably like IC title level. Occasional IWGP title challenger. I could see him definitely being someone in line to challenge for the IWGP title. And personally, there's the big part of me that's a huge mark for, Gary Albright and the Steiners and your Vaders and your Stan Hansens and those types of guys. And they used to push those types of characters heavily in All Japan and UWFI and stuff like that. And New Japan isn't really known for that quite as much. And I wouldn't be opposed if they did decide to at some point go with Jeff Cobb as a top gaijin role, a top star gaijin who could win the title. I think that'd be fucking awesome. But I just don't know if they see him that way.
Right. I do think, especially because the rumor was he signed somewhere, and obviously it's kind of clear that he's signed with New Japan now. I could see him as a dark horse pick for the New Japan Cup, and kind of feeling almost like that, kind of like a bad luck Fale role where that big monster is going to challenge IWGP champion. I
think it's too early, especially since I see Will as just being the de facto leader who kind of needs to get the initial pushes before they kind of have anyone else usurp him. That's just my traditionalist mindset, but I could be wrong. You could be right. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm saying dark horse. I'm not saying like he is like a shoe-in, like he's gonna pick. I think he's the guy he's getting a lot of wins, and you can kind of.
I know what dark horse is.
No, I'm just saying like I'm not saying like I'm 100% like Cobb's gonna win this thing.
I know you're not. I get you. I'm on the same. I understand.
All right.
Here's one thing I want to talk about for this next question, and I don't know how we didn't talk about this last week because it's one of the big news stories. One of the only actually really big news stories about the United Empire. Will Ospreay's t-shirt or polo shirts that are on sale. We didn't talk about that shit. So there's been a lot of controversy about those polos, and also just the gesture, like the hand gesture that Will Ospreay was doing, wearing them in the promo picture on the Tokon shop, because they bear a very close striking resemblance to the adopted uniform of the Proud Boys.
Yeah.
So, Jeremy, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's not a good look. I don't know if it was a fair coincidence and this was a design they picked and then the picture came out and it's like, somebody noticed it, or, he is doing this kind of arrogant, cocky heel gimmick. It's a possibility that they were like, well, let's kind of lean into something that people hate to get some heat. I don't know, but either way, it's not a good look.
It's really, and here's the bad thing. I love the look of Fred Perry polos. Like, I hate the idea that this is something that's kind of been co-opted, because that type of like polo, I think, is an extremely like sharp looking look, and I want to wear them, but I don't want to look like I'm supporting alt-right, far-right ideologies.
Right.
To be clear, I'm not far. I'm what's it called? Pretty much God, what's wrong with me?
Moderate?
No, I'm not a moderate. I'm a libertarian, pretty much. But God, I'm just tired tonight. I don't know. Anyways, but I hate the idea that like I couldn't wear one of those shirts. But here's the problem, okay? If you have a bunch of dudes go to, like, let's say in California, right, when we start running again, what if you have like 4 or 5 dudes who are like hardcore Will Ospreay fans, if they exist, and they're all, or they just really like the United Empire, they're all wearing those polo shirts and they're walking down the street.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's going to cause some problems.
It's fucked up. And it's like, I don't think that they should have that. Plus, wasn't he doing the hand gesture that they do?
No, I think it's different because they have like an Empire hand signal thing.
But it's the same. Yeah, but the Empire hand signal that he's doing looks exactly the same as the one that Drake Wirtz was doing. That looks like this.
Oh, the Q. That's the Q.
Yeah, it looks like the fucking Q. Yeah, that's the same thing.
Yeah.
It looks like the Q symbol. Like, where do you? I don't know, man. It's suspect as fuck.
Yeah, it's weird.
And here's the thing. I know that like not everyone in America is even kind of acutely aware of what's going on with this stuff, and I'm sure in Japan, where I'm sure this Proud Boy group isn't running actively
right,
there,
yeah.
They don't know. But I've got to imagine someone in the company is on some level at least aware of stuff like this to catch it. I mean, or maybe they're not. I don't know.
We've seen New Japan miss on stuff.
We saw WWE make a racist T-shirt for ACH,
right?
And
yeah,
that got through the cracks, and that's a bigger company than this,
right? So it wouldn't surprise me if it was a coincidence, but at the same time, it's still.
I've seen some people be like, they need to apologize, and I don't know if I would take it quite that far because I don't know that the intentions here were to emulate that, but it might be. We're literally like right on the heels of the nation getting stormed, back a few months ago, and most of the people that were involved with that were part of this group and part of QAnon. And this is not a political show, but it's fucking weird that they chose that exact polo. Now, there is an argument. Some people could say that they've done polos for other groups in New Japan, but no other group has chosen to have the same embroiderment on the arms and on the collar that's in that same style that looks like the ones that the Proud Boys wear. So
yeah.
To me, I'm just like, I think that this was somewhat intentional. I don't think that that's their gimmick, that they're terrorists or, a hate group. But I think that they might have done it intentionally
to try and get some heat.
To try and get some heat.
They are the Empire. They're kind of like this, proud group of guys. And
yeah.
So.
And I think that's a bad look, and I think they should probably rethink. Listen, guys, if you're listening, I wouldn't buy that shirt, okay? I know it's a good-looking shirt. I wouldn't buy it, and I'm just saying because it's not going to be a good look when other people...
Right, a group of Empire fans are...
I'm not saying because I'm going to be offended. I don't give a fuck. I'm just telling you, if you don't know...
Now you know.
You might want to not wear that shirt. It's not a good look.
Just get you a Ocon question shirt.
There's plenty of great Will Ospreay tees out there. He's got a store, Pro Wrestling Tees. Buy one of those shirts. Buy one of Ocon or one of Cobb's shirts. But I don't think you should wear that polo, bro.
So Dun Diesel's next question says, who do you think would be the most exciting matchup for each of the Young Lions upon graduation? I think Kid versus CSJ, Tsuji versus Cobb, and obviously Yumura versus Suzuki could all be absolute bangers.
Yeah, I mean, no. Well, I want Tsuji versus Naito because that's what they're teasing. I want Kid versus CSJ, and I want Yumura versus Suzuki because those are the 3 matches that they were teasing on the previous tour.
Yeah. And interesting note on Tsuji, Will Ospreay on these last couple of shows has been kind of trying to get...
He's angling to get him in the group.
Yeah, he's like, I'll take care of you, Tsuji. And of course, Tsuji's pissed because they're beating up on Tanahashi, and he's, Tanahashi's #1 fanboy.
Yeah.
So
Have you noticed that, like, all the Lions love Tanahashi?
Yeah, but dude,
Tsuji's his personal young
Tsuji
lion.
really loves Tanahashi.
Not as much as me, though.
I don't see you out there banging on the mat for Tanahashi.
I would, bro. They won't take me. You think I could pass? Do you think I could pass a New Japan Dojo test? There's no fucking way I could pass that test physically.
Give you some time. They can build you up.
Bro, I'm never going to pass that test. My best bet would be to maybe I don't know, work the door at a New Japan event or some shit. That's the closest I'm getting to working for them.
Oh, man.
But, yeah, man, I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, all those matchups, I agree with you. Those are the ones that are building up. Out of all of them, I don't know, Kid and ZSJ, I think they can have a really great matchup.
I mean, I know his question was what's the most exciting matchup? But that's, to me, it's it doesn't really matter because they're working with the vet, and I just want to see the ones that they promised us.
Yeah. So moving on for the rest of this card, we had the Bullet Club team of Chase Owens, Jay White, and GOD versus Chaos, Goto, Ishii, Toriano, and Yoshihashi's ended in a no contest.
After 11 minutes, 41 seconds. Not a fan of this. I've not really been a fan. Do you like the Chase Owens and Yano stuff that's going on? Because surprisingly, I'm not at all.
It's whatever. I mean, I don't hate it, but I don't love it.
I think it's just because they keep introducing the strap in the matches, and it's the same referee every time being like, oh... you should, bro, make some provisions that a strap doesn't come out in the middle of the fucking match.
Yeah, and we've been seeing a lot of DQs on this tournament during this tour. So why isn't We've
seen a lot of DQs this year, and I was in favor of it originally when we saw it for the one really heated feud between Tenkoji and United Empire. But now it's kind of spilling out. We're seeing it in the Bullet Club Chaos feud as well. In different, variations, and I'm just why? Why? I don't want that. I just don't want that. I don't think that this feud is warranted to be heated enough to. And then also, yeah, I mean, we saw it in matches that involved Okada and Evil. We saw it in matches that involved Suzuki-gun and God. Now we're seeing it with the Chase Owens and Yano matches. That's a lot of fucking DQs,
no contest. Now it's getting to a point where it's being overdone.
Yeah,
it worked great. It works great when it's done sparingly and done for a really heated feud. And I get this Bullet Club Chaos feud's supposed to be heated with Jay White and Ishii and all this stuff, but
you hit it on the head. You said sparingly and purposeful, and that's what it was when it was the feud with that was aforementioned. But now it's just becoming masturbatory. They're just doing it, and it's making me not be on my toes as a fan. Oh, I wonder if someone's gonna get DQ tonight. No, I don't give a fuck. I'm I wonder if I'm gonna have to waste 12 minutes of my time to see a bullshit finish that's not going to lead to any. That's literally gonna lead to a KOPW match that I don't even fucking care about that title. God.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah, it's like you do it one time throughout the year, and then you don't do it again till next year. Not even again the year. You do it so sparingly that it's special and it actually means something.
That's the funny thing. I think people think we're gonna come out here and cap and proclaim because every now and again people will have different opinions than us and we'll like something, but then I think they think because we do that once, we're gonna just give a pass to everything. It's like no.
Yeah.
God, I don't like this.
So next then there was Bushi, Hiromu, and Shingo defeating ELP, Taiji Ishimori, and Yujiro Takahashi. Semi-main event, we got a singles match here with Sanada defeating Yuji Nagata, 12 minutes and 1 second. Clearly with Naito being off the card. Card was shuffled around. It was supposed to be Naito and Sanada against Nagata and Ibushi. Changed it to a singles match, and I thought this match was pretty good.
It was fine. I mean, anytime you get Yuji Nagata in a singles match at this stage of his career, I'm gonna like it. This is the first time Sanada and Yuji Nagata have locked horns in over 10 years. The last time was All Japan Champions Carnival Final.
Wow, didn't realize it had been that long.
Yeah. So this one was really interesting, but it was just happening just because of the fact that Naito's not there. So there wasn't really a lot of story there. And, normally I would criticize Sanada for, lacking, heat, lacking dry, all this sort of, just kind of meandering, which is what we've sort of criticized him for. But I can't really criticize him for that in this match because there was not really much of a story or build. They just happened to be on opposing sides of a tag team all throughout the tour. The actual chain grappling was very good. And then they went into a sequence where Sanada worked the leg for a good portion of the match. And that was fine. But then at a certain point, towards the tail end, Nagata just stopped selling the leg and it never came back into play. I know you can't always 100% feature whatever limb work is done as part of the story. But this one, Sanada spent so much time working on Nagata's leg that it really felt like it was going to be part of the story. And then Nagata's like, fuck that, stands up. They
Kicks.
They just start throwing kicks and forearms. And then they go to the finish, and Sanada, the one thing that Sanada didn't spin him around. I don't know if you noticed that. He just put him in the skull and dropped him. Moonsault.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. That was fine. But the match was good. I mean, I would go probably 3.25 on this.
Yeah, I think I was like 3.5 on it. I don't know.
You could go through. I mean, it's 12 minutes. Yeah. It was nothing special, but I mean, it wasn't unenjoyable. But there wasn't a lot of heat behind it. The crowd wasn't really any. Didn't add much. I thought it was good for what it was, but I mean, it was a 12-minute match where they went out there and they performed.
Yeah. Then the main event of the show was Okada and Sho defeating Dick Togo and Evil. Now,
this is my favorite part of the show.
Now, I don't know if you caught this main event, because when I went to watch this show, the 5th match was not on there. It's not on there. And
did they add it later?
I don't think they've added it since. I haven't gone back to look.
No, they've never. That's why I said this is my favorite part, because we didn't have to watch it. They didn't. There was technical issues, and we missed the main event.
Yeah, I heard something about Sho having some indecent exposure that happened during the match. That was part of the reason. I don't know what happened there.
I've had a busy week. I didn't go out of my way to go and get a on-site review for what occurred between Okada and Sho when they defeated Dick Togo and Evil on the February 17th Road to Castle Attack main event. Like I was just kind of glad. I was like, 4 matches? That's nice.
So then moving on to the 22nd United Empire, they defeated Gabriel Kidd, Tanahashi, and Tenzan, the opener.
Can I say one thing about their matches that they're doing different from everybody else? United Empire going out of their way to have different matches every single night of the tour, which is not normally done. We've talked about it, how very often like for instance, the Chaos and Bullet Club multi-mans, they're all pretty much kind of the same formula. Whereas I've noticed that the United Empire going out there, they're working entirely different matches each time, which is good to some extent because they're not just wrestling for the crowd. I think they're trying to change things up, keep it exciting for themselves, but also for the viewer who watches on World. They're probably acutely aware that there are other people other than just those in attendance watching this stuff. But it is a double-edged sword because I've also noticed that what you'd come to expect, like for instance, whenever you see these formulaic matches we complain about, they're usually circulating around a particular feud or story.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for instance, like in these matches, early on in the tour, we saw the United Empire really doing the Mongolian chops a lot to Tenzan. But then when they changed the matches up, they didn't have the same spots like worked out. And so you would have kind of expected them to continue at least that part of it, but they kind of abandoned it a little bit towards the tail end of the tour. So it's like, it's double-edged because they're not doing as many of the things as you'd like to maybe see them do from a storyline perspective, but they're also wrestling entirely different matches and styles each night.
Which I appreciate, and I'm sure, I mean, these last few shows have all been in Corkin, so it's essentially, I know it's not 100% the same people, but you're in the same building, there's probably a good group of people, the same amount of people. Like, I'm glad they're kind of switching up and changing the matches up.
Do you think that there's a Corkin United group?
There could be.
I wonder about that.
They go to TJF Fridays after the shows.
Yeah.
But yeah, the United Empire, they've been looking good in these matches. Cobb's been getting all the wins with the Tour of the Islands on the Young Lions, and also they're building up for this never title match with Okan and Tanahashi. Then the second match of the night, we had Goto, Sho, Yano, and Yoshihashi defeating Chase Owens, Jado, Tamatonga, and Tangaloa. 11 minutes, 27 seconds. Were you going to say something?
The one thing I was going to say, I've noticed Okan and Tanahashi have been getting a lot of, they've been building their chemistry each night throughout the tour. That's one of the positive things.
Yeah.
And it's making me look forward to their rematch.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the Wrestle Kingdom match was very good, and I think this match has the potential to be better than the Wrestle Kingdom match.
I agree.
The middle of the show here, we had ELP and Taiji Ishimori defeating Bushi and Shingo. And this is where we got the post-match angle here of Desperado and Kanemaru coming out and laying out Taiji Ishimori and ELP and kind of dropping the challenge there for the junior tag titles this coming up Thursday, February 25th. So,
yeah, I mean, that's a big, development. A lot of people were kind of wondering, like we discussed what was going to happen with the announced injury with Hiromu. And this is the only real logical step that you could take. And they are fortunate that this is an option that they even had because, we've talked about how there's a lack of junior tag teams to really go with. And so because the way that they had the booking situated, I mean, Hiromu's departure put 2 major title matches in jeopardy. So they needed a tag team that could not only compete for the junior titles, but who also had, a top level junior star that's ready to also challenge for the IWGP title, most likely. And that's kind of what they got here with the former champions.
And there's a little bit of story here because these teams are just rivaling, and kind of their rivalry was kind of the start of ELP and the Loaded Boot and really getting that sudden death over in Japan. And so there's the whole story of Suzuki Gun trying to, they've been pointing out that something's in ELP's boot, and that's what cost them the titles just not too long ago. So getting a rematch here, kind of rekindling this feud with ELP and Taiji, and it's probably going to lead to a Despy ELP match on Sunday.
Yes, I agree. One thing too, I know that this match wasn't really highlighted here, but throughout the tour, because he was involved in this match, Shingo, I'm really looking forward to the idea that there's probably going to be a Nagata-Shingo feud or match leading. I'm guessing probably first round of New Japan Cup, it seems like.
Yeah. They were, on the opposite sides in the beginning of this tour, and I love their interactions. I need a Shingo-Nagata singles match.
They've even been sort of toying around with the idea that out on the outside, and they've been talking about this in the promos, how like Muto and Jun Akiyama both just won major singles titles, and kind of playing up the fact that like Nagata is looking to kind of up his game to get ready for the New Japan Cup, because maybe he's trying to emulate what they've also accomplished, you know?
Right.
Which is a good little story, but he kind of needs to go through Shingo to accomplish it, which is not an easy task. But that's a match that, like, I've got earmarked as being like a sleeper, you know, that's going to be fucking awesome.
Yeah, that's going to be a banger whenever it happens. Then the semi-main event of this show, we had Sonata once again in a singles match. This time he's taking on Hanma. Defeated him in 12 minutes and 45 seconds. Thought it was an all right match.
It was fine. I don't think Hanma should be put in these situations, but I understand why he was. The last time these two wrestled, again, was in All Japan when Sonata was defending the... I don't know how you say it. I don't know if it's Gaora or if it's Giora. I don't know if you say the word or if you just spell it out, but when he was defending basically their TV title in All Japan against Hanma years ago. So this is like, I think, the first New Japan meeting in a singles match between these two, and Sonata made him tap.
Yeah, fine matchup.
And again, Sonata, another guy that they, similar to like what I was mentioning with Jeff Cobb, who is like getting a lot of the wins and kind of getting rehabbed. Similar idea.
Yeah, a New Japan couple, obviously, they always have that story of Sonata kind of advancing every year and winning it and going far in that tournament. So he's a guy that...
I don't think they should do that this year.
Yeah, I think he won the cup. It's time for something else, but he is one of those guys that kind of heat up around this time. So
fuck that.
I could see him having, you know, going somewhat far in the tournament. Maybe not the finals, but, you know, at least, you know, towards the ladder and maybe semifinals, something like that. Then the main event here, we had Evil and Jay White with Dick Togo and Gato defeating Okada and Tomohiro Ishii.
Here's one thing I will say about the Evil Okada feud. Most of the actual wrestling that they've done in their multi-man matches throughout this tour as well as last tour have been good. It's actually been pretty good work. The promos backstage have been pretty good. Any segments that they've done have been good. All that goodwill gets undone when they do bullshit like they did at the New Beginning tour. That was seen by the majority of the fan base.
Right.
And that's how people are grading the feud. And I can't even really say, well, you should be watching this stuff, because I actually think that they were doing good work, got to New Beginning, and fucked it all up. You know?
Yeah.
And now they're trying to rehab something that was kind of going good that they treated like garbage. And so it's like the Evil and Okada interactions have been fine, and they might even turn around and have a really good match at Castle Attack. It's very possible, especially given the history that they've had where they've had good matches. But this is such like it's almost a cursed in a sense because of, you know, the New Japan Cup last year. And then also, you know, what they did at New Beginning and, you know, anything in between.
Right. And then with Jay White and Ishii, one thing that Jay has been doing these last few shows. Was that?
I was just screaming. The choking.
Yeah. But Jay, he's been going out in the crowd.
Oh, yeah.
To get away from Ishii because, you know, they're not allowed to fight in the crowd, obviously, due to COVID right now. So Jay would run into the crowd and, you know, like, ref, get him back. And so, so that's been something that's been going on in their feud. And
yeah, on this tour, the two guys that I've found the most compelling when it comes to character work have been Naito and Jay White. Naito was doing a lot of physical, you know, kind of like mockery, sort of
kind
like
of old school Naito.
Yeah, he was being a dick and trolling like super hard all throughout the tour until his injury came up, and I really actually enjoyed that about him, even though I didn't enjoy the current storyline between him and Ibushi with the titles, because it doesn't make logical sense. On the flip side, Jay White has been doing these other things like verbally to really like just get over like what a shitbag scumbag heel he is. And like you said, like stepping over the barricade, trying to get him to come out and fight him in the crowd, which he's not allowed to do.
Right.
And then like every time they're in the ring, you know, I complain a lot about like the verbal wrestling that happens in WWE, the Johnny Gargano matches,
the Roman Reigns,
you know, Keith Lee being like, I am limitless. But, you know, I'm a fan of it when it's done good. Like Ric Flair used to talk in his matches all the time. He talked shit and it was great. Or like Andre the Giant, like was really great at it. And Jay White has been great on this tour. Just like the things he says to Red Shoes, the stuff he says to the crowd, the stuff he says to his opponents. Like, it's not the story of the match. It's like a seasoning to the match. I love it.
Also, Jay has its eyes on Gabriel Kidd. He's been trying to get Kidd to like clap for him at the beginning of his entrances, and so wonder if he's trying to get a young lion in the Bull Club.
We've talked about this, that Jay is just, he takes whatever situation is thrown at him and he will audible and find a way to be a really great heel in the midst of whatever the situation is, you know?
Yeah.
Like when Josh Barnett jumped over the barricade in San Francisco, he just healed it up. He didn't like run or break character. He just healed it up. And like when they went to clap crowds, he just like started like trolling them, like clapping off beat and stuff like that. And so he always finds a way to like just be great. It's really good. They have been like choking out Ishii every night though.
Yeah.
And I haven't really been into that.
Yeah, there was one night where Ishii, he ended up choking out Gato. And like nobody made a save for him. They could kind of watch Gato get choked out. They
did do the spot where they in this match where they like got Gato isolated and they like drummed his back.
Do the drum thing, yeah.
But the match ended basically with Ishii on the outside with Jay White, and what they were like they were beating up Ishii and choking him, I guess. And then, am I recalling that correct?
Yeah, I think so. They're kind of blending together, but I think you're right.
And then Okada was in the corner getting garroted by Dick Togo, and after he got done getting choked out, he walked out, hit it. Evil hit Everything Is Evil, pinned him for the 1-2-3, which is one thing I was nervous about. When I saw this match on the docket, I was like, it's the go home to the go home. You've got the two of the biggest matches of the tour, and it's a tag team where you've got 4 strong guys here. Now, there is the logical sense where you could say Ishii could probably eat the pinfall, but he's the only, like, kind of, I guess, lower tier guy, but he needs to stay strong against Jay White. I was like, oh, my God, they're going to do another 30-minute. And I did not want to see Evil and Jay White against Okada and Ishii in a 30-minute. So I'm kind of glad they went this way. I mean, Evil getting a somewhat decisive, although dirty win over Okada is a big deal. But then again, I don't know. They've been doing so much ref bumps and cheating and choking and DQs and outside interferences and time limit draws. Like, it's just a lot of that stuff happening in New Japan right now, and I'm not a big fan of it. And this, in a vacuum, would have been fine, but it's like more of the same.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I'm glad they went with that way, too. Definitely would not want to see 30 minutes of Jay and Evil taking turns powdering.
Well, that's not good. It's not good that we would rather see a cheating finish where they choke the guy and cheat to get over than to see a 30-minute classic.
Right.
That's not a good sign. We should want to see them have the longer, classic match, but I don't.
So let's take a look at what's coming up here. The Go Home show here for the Castle Attack Tour. The last Road to Castle Attack show coming up on the 25th. So opening up, we have Tanahashi, Kojima, and Tsuji taking on the United Empire. Then we have Okada, Sho, and Toriano taking on Chase, Dick Togo, and Evil. Middle of the card, we got Goto, Ishii, and Yoshihashi taking on Jay White, Tama Tonga, and Tangaloa. So a rematch there of the Never Six-Man title, but as of right now, the titles are not on the line for that matchup.
One thing I'd like to say about that feud, I'm not opposed to what's been going on, but we've seen a lot of GOD and friends against Goto and Ishii and Yoshihashi in these different multi-mans, and I haven't really been too big of a fan of them, but the two guys that have been standing out almost the whole time have been Tangaloa and Yoshihashi.
Dude, Yoshihashi, he won that Never Six-Man title. Like, this is going to be, we talked about it, this is my title. I'm going to make this thing the best title in New Japan. He is just so fired up. Great facial, great emotion, great fire, great in-ring action. Yeah, he's been the highlight on the Chaos side. And yeah, Tangaloa, I've been saying this for a while now. Tangaloa is low-key raw. Like, this guy is like a powerhouse. He's doing insecurities and like just being a badass, and I love it.
Yep, I agree. Trained with that man. I did.
I know you did. So moving on to the semi-main event, we had Kota Ibushi, Hanma, and Yuji Nagata taking on Sonata Shingo. Well, this match will probably change. Oh, actually, that's right. Naito is back. That's right. So this match is intact. So yeah, Ibushi, Hanma, and Nagata against Sonata Shingo and Naito.
Well, there is the possibility here. Just hear me out. I think they're still doing Naito and Ibushi, but let's say they can't. Hypothetically, having Shingo in this spot in this match might be a little bit of an opportunity to transition things, if needed.
Like have Shingo pin Ibushi?
Oh, like Naito is hurt in the match. Shingo and Ibushi run it. Post-match, Shingo says, I'm going to step in for him. Naito and Ibushi agrees, something like that. I don't know. And it's not likely, but I'm just saying if you were going to go that way, here's your out card right here.
Yeah. Then the main event for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team titles, El Phantasmo and Taiji Ishimori will defend against Desperado and Kanemaru.
Well, this was a match that we saw previously. We liked a lot. A lot of other people didn't like it based on the amount of interference, the amount of ref bumps, the amount of weapon shots, and that was a little bit overdone. I think that we might see, there's still two heel teams, so we might see some of those elements here, but if they are going to switch gears, because the junior title match was supposed to co-headline on the 28th show on Sunday, they probably need to fill that void. I think that they need to flip the titles, get them on Suzuki-gun, and give Desperado a reason to challenge, which means we're not going to see, what does he call his finisher, ELP?
The sudden death.
We're not going to see the sudden death here. I don't believe, or at least not, I don't think they're going to win with the sudden death. I think that Suzuki-gun is going to figure out how to get past the sudden death and trump it and probably pin El Phantasmo. I think we're going to see Desperado beat him with Pinche Loco.
Yeah, I think what we could see is like ELP, they move out the way, he hits sudden death on Taiji. Taiji's out, and then it's like a 2-on-1, and then Despy pins ELP.
That's the way you could do it. I wouldn't be opposed to it. So, I mean, I think we're both in agreement that we're going to have new IWGP Junior Tag Team Champions on Thursday.
Yep. So now we move on to predictions for Castle Attack. So we have night 1 on Saturday, February 27th, opening up the show with the United Empire against Tanahashi, Tenzan, and Kojima.
I don't know that I need to predict anything here. If I was going to put a prediction, it'd probably be on the United Empire, just because I don't see any of them ready to eat a loss there. But, I think it's a multi-man and it's a preview match, so it's inconsequential as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go with Cobb, Tour of the Islands on Tenzan. Then we move on to match number 2. We have Yoshihashi versus Tanga Loa singles matchup.
This one is interesting. This is kind of like one of those situations. We see this happen every so often in New Japan, where they'll have a tag team feud, and then they'll do singles matches, and those ones are always kind of hard to really predict,
Yeah.
So, I mean, what are you thinking?
So for me, I'm going with Tanga Loa getting the win here because, they had the whole story of Yoshihashi kind of getting that upset win over Tanga Loa in one of those multi-man matches, and Tanga Loa is usually the one they keep strong. He's usually gets the most pinfalls for GOD, and so for whatever reason, they just seem to push him a lot, and so I think that he's going to end. Yoshihashi's going to fight hard, but at the end of the day, it's going to be ape shit 1, 2, 3, and Tanga Loa is going to get the win here.
All right, well, let's roll into the next match too, just for the sake of discussion. Goto against Tama Tonga, opposite side of the coin. I mean, how do you see that rolling out? Do you think that Bullet Club or you think GOD's sweeping here, or do you think we're going to split the wins?
So I think we're going to split the win. So I got Goto winning this one just because Goto is the more established singles guy with him and Tama Tonga. And so I think it makes more sense to kind of have them on an even playing field going into the tag title match the next day.
Yeah, we do like a little prediction league with some New Japan fans on Facebook, and I think that this was part of that prediction league. I don't even remember what I predicted because I just figured. I think I split the wins too because I think that makes sense. And yeah, I'll just say the same thing as you. I mean, Yoshihashi is not necessarily known for being like a top singles guy when it comes to wins losses. Like he does well, but he doesn't have a title. I mean, this is non-title, so it's not like he can't afford to eat the pinfall.
Right.
There's a part of me that wonders though if maybe they have God sweep.
You could do that.
In fact, I think that's a I think Tamatonga and Tangaloa might sweep here. So I think that for the sake of this discussion, I think that's what I'm going to predict.
Okay. So then we move on to the
Heat.
the KOPW 2021 provisional title match. The people have spoken. It will be a YTR strap match as Toru Yano defends against Chase Owens.
So how did this work the last time that they had to undo the with the body slam match? Because I don't remember. Was it like you had to undo each one each time, or did they keep getting put back up? I can't remember.
I think you just had to just take them all. I don't think they got put back up. I think just
so basically in this one, whoever pretty much is going to be the last guy taking off the turnbuckle wins.
Yeah.
So hypothetically, you could have like say Chase Owens gets all of the first three and there's just one remaining, but then Toru Yano gets it and he wins.
That could happen.
That sounds stupid. Like this is a stupid gimmick to me. I've never been. I've liked some. People are always like strap matches are terrible. The Yappa Pie. If you guys don't know about the Yappa Pie strap, you need to go Google and watch. They're on the network. They're on YouTube. You got to watch Hulk Hogan talk about the Yappa Pie strap.
Yeah, it's a famous scene in Botchamania.
Oh, it's one of the best like terrible promos of all time. The Yappa Pie. Anyways, but yeah, I've never been totally opposed to strap matches. What I don't like is the whole you gotta hit all of the top four corners in a row to win.
Yeah, I prefer it be pinfall.
Yeah, I prefer them just like pin each other. I think that's how the Caribbean strap match was with Stone Cold and Savio Vega. Maybe I'm wrong. I haven't seen it in years, but I'm not like excited about this at all on any level, and I don't think Toru Yano is losing. I think this should just open the show so that we don't have to be so late in the show and watch this shit.
Yeah, I mean, this man has KOPW merch. I don't think they are taking it off of him anytime soon. Oh, one thing we failed to mention, his trophy broke on the last Road 2 show.
I don't care.
So, yeah.
Bro, I told you, they've got a warehouse of those trophies that they bought on discount.
Yeah, so for the Yano fans, it might be entertaining. I mean, I think it'll be fine. Not really looking forward to it, but it's going to be there.
I felt like there was something. Yeah. So like today, I was on one of the Facebook groups. I know I've been talking shit about the Facebook groups, but like every now and again, I'll jump in one, and someone was like, "Have there ever been any cage matches in New Japan?" And they're like, "Evil and Okada should settle their feud in a cage." And I was like, "Oh, this question's right up my alley." You know, because I love cage matches, and I know exactly how many there have ever been in New Japan. So I go online, and, like, nobody knows. Someone's like, "I don't think they've ever done one." They definitely did one with Chono, and they're like, "But like," and I was like, so I went in there. I was like, there have been 5 steel cage matches in the history of New Japan. I list all of them, and, like, I get no love for it. I get no love for being, like, the most accurate guy like, in the group with the dates, the exact titles, the participants, the events, the names, the types, the stipulations, like nothing. So then someone else was like, "I don't think they should ever do gimmick matches in New Japan. The reason I like New Japan is because they always have the same rules for every match." And I was like, no, they don't. I was like, there have been literally hundreds. I was like, they do them sparingly, but there have been hundreds of gimmick matches. And I was like, martial arts matches, exploding death time bomb matches, strap matches, bull rope matches.
Suzuki in his run with the Never title was doing a lot of gimmick stuff.
Yeah, he was doing bull rope matches and lumberjack death matches and Inoki did
we had a ladder match with Omega and Elgin.
We've had multiple ladder matches, multiple no DQ matches, hair versus hair matches, 2 out of 3 falls, 3 ways, 4 ways, like everything, just because they're not seen that often. And then they were like, not since I've been watching it, not since 2016. So then I had to like list everything, and I was like, I gotta stay off of Facebook. Like I can't. This is what I was talking about earlier. Like there's no way you've been watching since 2016 or maybe you weren't paying that much attention because there've been like
tons since then.
We just had Will Ospreay and Kojima in a no DQ match. That shit was hardcore as fuck.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
So, semi-main event of night 1, the Stone Pitbull Tomohiro Ishii finally gets his hands on the Switchblade Jay Whito.
I've got Jay White winning here, which, like, based on how I've booked it, it looks like I've got 3 pretty big singles wins for Bullet Club. This is a heavy Bullet Club featured show.
It is.
Yeah.
Also going with Jay getting the win here, I think it makes the most sense. You know, him coming back from the big return and getting ready for New Japan Cup season. I think, you know, Jay's a guy you got to get heated up.
He's never beat Ishii. I would love for Ishii to be like the bane to his existence and gets another win, and like Jay just cannot get past Ishii.
Right.
I would love that to be the story, but I don't think it's gonna be. So I'm taking Jay. I think that this will probably be the match of the night. It's probably the one big match I'm looking forward to on the show. Most of the show I'm not like that stoked about.
Yeah, on paper, this should be the match of the night easily. Then in the main event, we have the big New Japan Cup final rematch with Kazuchika Okada taking on Evil.
They've had some classics before, most notably the G1 match they had, I believe, in 2017, 2018? I cannot remember.
I believe it was 2017.
Maybe. But you know, it's a different day, different characters, same performers, but a lot of time has passed. I'm hoping. I mean, Evil has from time, like I've always said this, he's very inconsistent. Sometimes he's great, and then other times he's lackluster. This has all the potential in the world based on the feud that they've had to be very lackluster. At the same time, we've seen some shining examples throughout the feud, like namely at New Beginning when they started punching each other and like there was heat there, or like some of the chair sequences where they're laying each other out, you know, ringside during the New Beginning tour. If they can go out there and do some of that stuff that I was actually engrossed with, as well as have a, you know, commendable wrestling match, something that is highly entertaining and, you know, spirit-filled, I'll be stoked, but I'm not anticipating it. The last big match they had was New Beginning, New Japan Cup last year, and I thought it sucked. So, and based on Evil's track record this year, I mean, I think there have probably been like 2 singles matches of his I've liked this year, like actually liked, and maybe 3. Probably the Hiromu match, the Zack Sabre match in the G1, and the Yoshihashi match in the G1.
Yeah.
And he's worked with a lot of great talent this year, and I haven't been a fan. So I'm not anticipating really liking this match. I've got Okada going over.
Yeah, I got Okada winning, getting that big win, getting the monkey off of his back here. And yeah, this match, I mean, we're going to see. We know what happens in Evil main events. They're too long, and there's garrotes and Dick Togo running in and all Bullet Club running in and a ton of interference and cheating and ref bumps and shenanigans. So hopefully they decide to go with an Okada approach for the main event and not the Evil approach, and maybe they can salvage this thing.
Well, Okada has long matches too, but the difference is his are good.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Hopefully they can lay it out. Minimal interference, because I know that Dick Togo is going to show up at some point.
You got to make peace with that.
I've made peace with that. I know it's going to happen, but there's a way to do it, to maximize it for the match and not to overdo it. And so,
one thing that's interesting, prior to New Beginning, Okada on the post matches was talking about how he wanted to bring New Japan back up to his level, to the IWGP, you know, level. Basically, he's talking about like the house style. That hasn't really been the story of this feud at all, but because maybe that's a little too insidery. But to me, I'm wondering if like deep down, that's what the aim is here, is that he's gonna like go out there and give Evil a classic and like basically show him like listen, this is my company. This is my spot. Here's the level you got to get up to. Let me carry you, kid. You know?
I hope that's the case. So we move on to night 2 on Sunday, February 28th. Open up with Will Ospreay and Jeff Cobb taking on Tenzan and Kojima.
Before we continue, I got to tell you, I take back my predictions. I don't think Bullet Club, or I don't think GOD is winning their matches back-to-back on the first night, because I wasn't thinking critically, and I realized, like, oh, they're having the title match the next night.
Right.
So I think that your prediction's probably the most accurate. I think Tingalo will probably win his match. And then, I'm going to flip that. I think...
You're going to do a chaos clean sweep?
I think that's too obvious. I think Yoshihashi's winning and Goto's losing. Because I think that we'll get to it, but I think it's going to play into how I need to switch things though. All right, let's go back. So Ospreay and Cobb against Tenzan and Kojima. I think most likely. I think Will Ospreay and Jeff Cobb are winning here. Yeah,
United Empire, probably Cobb pitting Tenzan again with Tour of the Islands. Or, you could have Ospreay pin Kojima again. Kind of put the nail in the coffin for sure in that rivalry.
Next match, we have Okada and Ishii and Yano versus Evil, Jay White, and Chase Owens. I'm assuming Yano will roll up Chase Owens.
Yeah, kind of put the end of that feud.
Fourth match of the night. Third match of the night. This is the big IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team title. We got the Guerrillas of Destiny, Tama Tonga, Tangaloa, defending against the Chaos Team, 2/3 of the Never Openweight Tag Team Champions, Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi. And in this situation, I think Yoshihashi will be the weak link, and he'll be the one who eats the pinfall. So I got him winning the first night to prep him to lose the next night.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I could see that happening. But yeah, I think regardless, GOD is going to retain here.
I agree. I think GOD is retaining. Although I wouldn't be opposed. Based on the work that they've done in the Never 6-man division, hey, why not?
Double goal Yoshihashi.
Yeah, double goal this man. I don't give a fuck. But, I don't know. I'm not sure who's next when it comes to the heavyweight tag team scene. But I'm assuming that if they retain, they're probably both going to go into the New Japan Cup as singles guys, and that will help establish their next title feud coming out of New Japan Cup Tour.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure who would be next. For either team, if they won, who would be next? Because it seems like Techers are taking a break for right now.
Well, that's the thing. If you have Chaos win, you've got a built-in immediate rematch like they like to do with the heavyweight tag team titles. So, that is an option. I just feel like it's too much hot potato with those belts.
Yeah.
But we saw some of that early on last year, so they could do it. I don't think that they should.
Yeah. For some reason, I just feel like they want to keep GOD strong for right now. And, yeah, I think they're going to walk out of here with the titles.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's another thing. It's GOD. It's like their record-breaking title run. I don't think that they should treat it, less than the way that they want to book it. So
yeah, and I'm not saying something's going to happen, but there has been a lot of back and forth with them and Kenny and Good Brothers. They could be lining something up. I'm not saying they are, but it sounds like they're trying to work an angle, and maybe they're going to keep the titles on GOD because of that.
Oh, they're not working an angle, bro. This is real life.
It's a shoot.
It's a shoot, brother. It's a shoot.
It's real.
Bro, listen. I'm sorry if you're. God, there's a lot of fans that when this stuff all ends up playing out, they're gonna that have really worked themselves into getting this worked up and upset about AEW, that they're gonna be pissed when they all start working together because they believed these could you imagine believing pro wrestlers?
No.
Bro, they're professional, they're carnies. They are liars. That is what their job is to deceive, because they are upholding kayfabe for entertainment purposes. It is, I called it art earlier, but at the same time, it is still, it's a work. And man, people listen to Tama's Island, and it's a good podcast, but they get worked hard, and they think that they think they're like getting insidery. It's like those 1-800.
The WCW,
like the hotlines.
Hotlines, yeah.
So when people would call the hotlines and they thought like they were getting insider info and they're getting worked out of their money. It's the same shit.
Yeah, dude.
They go to Bullet Club beach parties and stuff, and and block parties, and they go into the special members only groups with these guys.
The happy hours.
The happy hours, and they think that they're like this, like boys with God, and they've picked their side, and that's cool. I like that aspect of it. I would love if hypothetically, and I mean I don't want to overdo it with the open door talk, but I would love it if when they did eventually do some sort of feud between these groups, that there are fan bases that are very much like I'm pro Bullet Club, I'm pro New Japan, and then other ones that like I'm all elite, and because that's how UWF New Japan felt. Like it was like I'm in this camp and fuck those guys.
Yeah.
And that like I would love there to be like a soccer element here. But at the end of the day, people need to realize like these guys are all trying to get paid. This is business.
Yeah.
And this is 100% a work.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's people who are very, very, very much invested into a particular narrative and a particular ideology and have, hate in their hearts.
They're listening to Kane from back in the day. They embraced the hate.
They've embraced the hate, bro. Be like Cena. Cena said no to the hate.
Yeah. Come on, guys.
It's a work, bro. Anyways, let's talk about the fourth match of the night. The Never Openweight Championship title match, as our champion in 2021, Hiroshi Tanahashi, defends the title against the Great O-Khan.
We had a question here from Rambo and Slam Pigs. Is it morally wrong for me to be rooting against Tanahashi at Castle Attack? I love the Ace of the Universe, but I am kind of hyped for the possibility of Great O-Khan tearing up the Never division.
I'm what you would call a stan for Hiroshi Tanahashi. That would, I suppose, make me a Stanahashi. And I will not be rooting against the Ace of the Universe, the once-in-a-generation talent, Hiroshi Tanahashi.
The man that pointed at you in New Orleans.
He did. He pointed at me because I did his hand signal to him. This hand signal. You guys can't see it, but I'm doing it. And then he looked at me. He saw me doing it, and he smirked, and he pointed. And then I mean, if you guys in the show, you know the story. But I'm not going to go against him, but I will predict that O-Khan's going to beat that ass because that's what's going to happen. And when he does it, I'm going to be heartbroken because I fucking love Hiroshi Tanahashi.
Yeah. I love Tanahashi too. I would love for Tanahashi to have a long never title run and to do some cool stuff and face some juniors and face some more strong style guys. Face Ishii, Nagata, Suzuki, kind of have these kind of never style matches with these guys. But I don't think that's in the cards. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that they're trying to establish Great O-Khan as a future star. And I think a big win here over Tanahashi makes a ton of sense. I don't think it makes sense to have him lose twice to Tanahashi. He already lost Wrestle Kingdom. I think it's time to get the win back, get the never title here, and then continue to build Great O-Khan up.
Sometimes I like to belabor certain points, but other times you do a really good job putting it together. And you said the exact right thing. It just wouldn't make sense. And so you did a great job. I don't have anything else really to add to that.
One of the things I wanted to add about Tanahashi and Never titles, I saw in an interview, they were talking about like why he doesn't wear the Never title around his waist. And he said, talking with Shibata never wears the Never title because he always felt like he was IWGP level. And so he never wanted to wear the Never title around his waist. He told Tanahashi the same thing.
Well, I mean, you know why Tanahashi, have you ever noticed that Tanahashi's robes all have the cutout in the middle? Mm-hmm. It's for the IWGP title. This man has designed his robes to highlight the IWGP title specifically. Now, I am kind of wondering if he ever wore the IC belt.
Yeah, he did.
He did?
Yeah.
I didn't notice that about him not wearing the Never title.
I didn't notice it until I read the interview, and I started paying attention to the entrance. I'm like, oh, he's not wearing. He's like has it over his shoulder or just kind of carrying it.
That's interesting. Well, the more you know. Well, anyways, I mean that's good to know. But yeah, I mean O-Khan's beating him, so
yeah. Then semi-main event, we don't know what's going to happen. Originally, it was supposed to be Hiromu versus ELP. We are working under the assumption that they're going to build off the tag title match, and it's going to be Desperado versus ELP.
We don't know that at all. This is just our speculation. And with that being the case, I think that my whole reasoning and thinking was they see Desperado right now at a certain level, and that level is high enough to be in a big time main event, but not high enough to carry the title. And I think that's the situation that we're still in at this current time. But I think they see ELP differently. I thought he was going to beat Hiromu Takahashi with the sudden death.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to cheat, hit him with the sudden death win. And I think that's the fate that awaits Desperado. I would not be surprised if we see Desperado go on a major run in the Super Juniors, maybe even potentially win it, and chase ELP later in the year. I think that this is potentially the start of a feud between them.
Yeah, it could be, and especially with Hiromu gone, you need to create some top guys there and create a new top program, and so I think that could be the way to go.
Yeah. I don't see it being like an immediate thing, though, because if you're going to, hypothetically, if you're going to put the junior tag titles on Suzuki-gun, they're going to have to defend those belts and be a little bit preoccupied in the meantime.
Yeah.
So I see any sort of like follow-up happening post Super Juniors or maybe during the Super Juniors, something like that.
Yeah, you could have them face off again in the same block.
Potentially, yeah. But that's what I've got. No matter what, depending on what happens, I think El Phantasmo is going to be our new junior champion coming out of Castle Attack.
That's what I got, too. I think he was going to end up beating Hiromu, and so I think regardless of what happens, I feel like he's going to leave Osaka with the junior title as well.
So our main event, which we're assuming at this current time is still exactly as booked, and this is the one that I feel the least confident is going to actually happen the way it is. It is the IWGP Intercontinental Championship title match between Kota Ibushi and challenger Tetsuya Naito. And this one's interesting because I thought for sure Naito was going to win the title just based on everything. What are some like realistic scenarios that you could see here? I mean, do you think that there's a potential Naito's just fine and he's just going to win the title and just move on? And what have you kind of thought of the story? Because a lot of the shit that we talked about, remember last week I was like, yo, I haven't heard what he's been saying, but like the initial things he said didn't make sense. But as we've gone on further, I have heard some of these interviews and they just, bro, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. They don't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what happens here depends on the state of Naito's knee. If it's somehow he escaped that role from Nagata with some kind of sprain and he's fine and he can compete in the match and win the title, I still think if he's healthy, I think he's winning the title, and that's going to be their way to finally separate the titles and be able to use that IC title to main event some B shows. If he's not healthy, if he needs surgery, I think he'll still try to do the match, but Ibushi wins.
Well, there's a lot of things I'm concerned about. It's like, okay, if he's quote unquote healthy, well, what does that mean? By what standard? Healthy enough to continue wrestling? And at what level, Mm-hmm. Plus, we got a New Japan Cup tournament right around the corner. So let's say hypothetically he wins. It's going to be a little while before he defends the belt. And is he at a health level right now where he can do that competently? Are they hoping to put the belt on him and kind of wade in the water, bide time and get to a point where he can competently defend? Or are they going to have to turn around and have him drop the title pretty quickly after that?
Yeah, I think the good thing with New Japan Cup coming up right after this is, it's New Japan Cup, so he could easily get knocked out in the first round by somebody big.
And still got to be on tour?
Right. You can hide him in multi-mans until the end of the tour and then have him defend against whoever knocks him out if he can do that.
Well, the other thing, too, is like, well, what if they decide to do the match because they don't want to false advertise? It is what most people are buying their tickets off of and everything like that. And it's a big money match. And but they need to have Ibushi retain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the whole story has been that Ibushi wants to unify these two titles, and we don't even know exactly what that means. Does that create a new third title, or does that, just completely eliminate, say, the IC title, and now it's just amalgamated into the other? We're not really sure, and I think that that's part of what the storyline concern that Naito has for the situation. I read some of the things Ibushi was saying. They weren't great translations, but he was basically saying that to move forward and honor these two different titles lineages, we needed to progress. And I'm just kind of paraphrasing.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah.
And he was alleging that the new title would be an IWGP World Heavyweight titles, like what he called it.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that is something you could do. You could create a new belt. I mean, it's not like New Japan has never had other world titles. They've had at least 3 other world titles that are maybe, and if you count some of the other recognized outside partnership world titles, like the NWA title, the WWF titles, they've had more, but for the better part, since like 1987, the IWGP title that's in its current incarnation has been the standard bearer for the company. And it's one of the most revered world titles ever in the history of wrestling. It would just be, to me, I would be like flabbergasted that they might hypothetically do like a new lineage of these two combined belts.
Yeah. How would you feel if they kept the lineage but changed the name of the title?
I mean, you could do that. That WWF has done that
in
the past. They've unified the World Heavyweight title, which was like basically the WCW title, into the WWE title and called it the
Undisputed.
When Randy Orton did it, they called it the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, but it retained the original Buddy Rogers 1954 or 1964, whatever it is, lineage. So they could do that. And then eventually they went back to just calling it the WWE title, which is maybe what would happen here. They call it the IWGP World title, and then it's just known that it's the same lineage, which is, I guess I'd be fine with that. What I don't think is necessary is creating a new lineage, though.
Yeah, that I hope they don't do that. Like you mentioned, like the IWGP title, like that history, like you can't just redo that history. And the great title matches and great stars and great moments that have come attached with that lineage and that history has been built up so well over the years. And so,
well, here's the thing. In All Japan, they did the Triple Crown in like 1988, and the 3 titles that the PWF, the All Asia, I don't know, I can't even remember the National Heavyweight title, the NWA National Heavyweight, the PWF World Heavyweight, and then the I think it's the All Asia title. I don't know, I always forget. All 3 of those had extensive, long respected heritages that were comparable, and at least 2 of the belts went back to the JWA, went back to Luthez and to Rikidozan. And then the 3rd title was the title that Baba created when he started All Japan, the PWF title, and he defeated, quote unquote, 10 world champions to establish that lineage. And then they eventually acquired the other 2 belts later on. So they had 3 essentially top titles concurrently, which was kind of necessary because here was the situation you had at the time. Baba had to always be a world champion, being the top draw domestically. But because he was going to be the champion, you needed other top titles for Saruda and Hansen and whoever, Abdul the Butcher, whatever, Billy Robinson, people like that. But once Baba was out of the picture, there was no need to have 3 top world titles. And it actually made sense for them to start a new lineage because when they amalgamated all 3 of them, which one was the most prestigious? Well, it depended. The answer was whichever one Baba held.
Right.
That was the one. And he held all of them. So it really just kind of depended. That was a different situation because you had 3 titles that were basically on the same level in stature. And so when you created the All Japan, the Triple Crown, you're creating something that was greater than the sum of its parts because it took all 3 lineages, ended them, and said, this is the ultimate title. But you don't have that with the IC belt. The IC belt, while it is definitely revered, it just pales in comparison to the history of the IWGP title.
Right, the IWGP is already at that ultimate level. It's already the ultimate title.
Right. And I know that there is an argument to be made that the company has too many titles and they could probably do without the IC belt. But I feel like they did to a certain extent, they elevated the Never belt this past year, and they were able to draw with it. Now they've got on Tanahashi. So could they over time elevate that to be a number 2 title? Yeah, they could. But I don't know why you would need to do that when you already have a hierarchy established. It seems like a waste of the white belt, which they'd already done a fantastic job getting it over to that level when they had top headliners holding that belt like Naito, like Tanahashi, like Jericho, like Nakamura, and they did big business with it. And it's already kind of seen that way. They've headlined a Wrestle Kingdom with the thing, for God's sake. So that's my whole thinking is I still don't think that they should unify them. I guess that whole rant was to say this. If Kota Ibushi needs to retain it, is there a chance that maybe he doesn't unify them? Maybe there's a story they could tell. Stories.
A moment.
Maybe there's a moment that they could create where like Naito loses, but Naito brings him over to his way of thinking. And that facilitates Ibushi realizing I would be dishonoring. Instead of honoring these belts and these lineages and the men that held them, I'd be doing a disservice to them and the fans by getting rid of it.
And then maybe going forward, if we see Ibushi defending both like individually.
Maybe he does drop it. Maybe he vacates it like we've said he should have done all along.
And then the winner of New Japan Cup gets it.
If that is I still would have issues with the idea that Naito's stupid enough to only challenge for the one belt. But at least if that's what they ended up doing, Ibushi wins, right? Mm-hmm. So you don't devalue him as the champion. But Naito gets the moral victory in bringing him over to his way of thinking. And it creates a scenario where the IC belt is dropped honorably. I think that's the best outcome. I hope that's what happens. And in fact, at this point, based on me saying it, I'm just going to predict that that's what happens. Although I think it's a long shot.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if Naito's good to go, I think they're going to put it on Naito.
There's also the fact that we have a vacant IWGP Junior title right now. We don't know what's going to happen with that because nothing as of the time of this recording has been made official. So how likely would it be that they also vacate the IC belt at the same time? That would seem like a lot of vacant belts, which I don't think maybe they'd like to do that. So I do agree with you. I think the most likely scenario is Naito wins. I still think his knee's fucked up. And so that's what, I'm like, if his knee's fucked up, not only is the health issue there's also the fact of what the fuck does he want to do with this belt? Because Ibushi's been talking about this in the post matches. Is what does he want to do? Because he's been extremely cryptic about it. Sometimes the way he's talking makes it sound like he wants to defend it. Other times makes it sound like he wants to win it and then vacate it himself so he can say he's the last guy that held it. And he's not being forthcoming about what he actually is trying to do. And I think the reason he's not being forthcoming is because the story actually doesn't make sense. And the only way that he can instead of falling into the trap of I'm going to give bad logic, I'm just going to be
mysterious.
I'm going to be mysterious about it. So I don't have to commit to any of these bad stories.
Yeah, I know he's been saying he has special plans for it, and also with Hiromu's injury, my anniversary show theory went out the window there. I was predicting that it was going to be Naito versus Hiromu for the IC title.
Well, both of them are hurt.
Yeah.
God, damn. That sucks.
I know, man. I was waiting for that victory lap.
But that's the thing. Naito isn't. There are times in his story where he really sounds like he wants to win it, so he can continue to honor it and carry it and defend it. And there's other times where he sounds like he wants to drop it himself because that's his goal. I was the last guy to hold it. Now it's done. I did away with it, you know?
Yeah.
It's like when Undertaker tried to save Paul Bearer, then he killed him himself.
Yeah. SummerSlam.
I think it was Great American Bash.
Great American Bash, yeah.
So, I mean, this story's so convoluted, but, you know, there is this new... I'm not necessarily excited. I was excited about it initially just from the in-ring standpoint when they announced it because these guys always have great matches. But now I'm more like just... I think it's... I don't know what to expect.
Yeah, there's too many question marks. Like, is Naito even going to be able to wrestle a main event quality match?
Then there's the other option where if, like we talked about, they need a substitute because Naito might not be able to perform. And then it does seem like at that point, maybe Shingo should be the guy. But then you run into the same issues that were brought upon when we first discussed this last week. Should the IWGP champion be dropping the IC title to anybody?
No, because then it still makes him look weak, and then it's like, all right, well, Shingo beat this guy. Now Shingo should get a IWGP title shot.
Shingo is the one guy that's free, though. The one guy that's free that, I mean, he's perfectly slotted to be. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I mean, he's not doing anything on these cards, really.
Right.
And they were teasing, and all the same reasons you mentioned. Provided Shingo ends up in the match, do you think he beats Kota Ibushi?
I would say yes.
And doesn't that sound crazy, though?
It does.
I'm going to go with my prediction that Kota Ibushi and Naito have a match that is about Naito teaching Ibushi the importance of the IC title to convince him in losing that Ibushi shouldn't combine these titles. And hey, Gato, if you're listening or anyone who has his ear, that one's free. There you go.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. I salvaged this shit. Here you go.
Yeah, I'm just going to predict Naito or Shingo.
I just don't think Ibushi should be losing.
I don't think
he's the IWGP champion.
I don't think so either, but I just have a feeling that that's what they're going to do.
You know, and I haven't felt strong about him on this tour as being champion. Like,
he's been
just non-factor.
Yeah.
He's just been there. Like, I mean, he's fine. Like, I'm not like complaining that he's champion or anything, but I'm just like not really invested. Character-wise, nothing's really been happening. He's been getting beat up. And, I mean, him and Naito, when they were wrestling in the multi-man matches, it was good shit.
Yeah.
But I don't know now.
Yeah, I just feel like they want to get that IC title, be able to use it to main event shows, especially all of these double night shows. It's great to have the IC title in that role, especially if you're going to have a lesser star with the junior title. It makes more sense to potentially main event with the IC title. So that's why I'm thinking they're going to go with getting that belt off of Ibushi.
Well, night 2 looks better than night 1. I'm excited, though, to kind of see what happens, although I'm not. This is like one of the least invested I've felt for a major show, especially this time of year, in a long time. And it's just because of the state of things.
Yeah, I think there's so many things that are affecting the hype for this show. It's, coming off of a weak new beginning in Hiroshima, get a state of emergency with these smaller crowds, less energetic.
They are either sold out or close to sold out for these shows, though. So I think having an energetic crowd will probably help quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that is going to do it for the Castle Attack talk. Let's talk some American wrestling.
Yeah, so New Japan Strong, we had night 1.
One thing I wanted to say, and I've been wanting to say this for several weeks now, because I don't know exactly when they did this, but they changed the intro video.
Yes.
For New Japan Strong. Bro, the intro video to New Japan Strong is, in my opinion, one of the all-time greatest intro videos for any wrestling show I have ever seen. It has very, very strong Nintendo 64 Aki energy. Like, it reminds me, it's NWO versus WCW Revenge. It's World Tour. It just has that feel to it. It's fucking awesome. Like, it's a really smart intro because they got awesome music, and then they show
incorporate like the grunts and the chops and like the slaps and
yeah, and they and what they do is they have each character come out and their name like scrolls over with this really dope ass graphic, and it shows them like brutalizing people, and it kind of tells you a little bit about who they are as a character. It reminds me of like when you turn on like NWO versus WCW Revenge, and the intro video like gave you a little bit of a taste and backstory of who the guys were. It feels like that. Whoever put this video together, A+ work. I fucking love that intro video. I never really rave about that sort of stuff, and I think it's so good.
Yeah, so we had night 1 of New Beginning in USA this past Friday. Opened up, we had Adrian Quest, Mysterioso, and Rocky Romero defeating Barrett Brown, Ray Horus, and the DKC, 10 minutes 13 seconds. Then in the semi-main event, we had Mr. No Days Off, Fred Rosser, defeating Hikuleo, 10 minutes and 40 seconds.
What did you think about Fred Rosser cheating to beat Hikuleo?
It's kind of weird, because he's supposed to be babyface, and the whole story is he's been trying to get revenge on the Bullet Club for being these dastardly cheating heels, and so I guess it kind of works that he's getting one up on them for them cheating on him all the time. So
yeah, I mean that is something that like back in the 80s, especially the early 80s, you'd watch like say territory wrestling, especially like WWF in New York, and a lot of the good guys would get comeuppance by using the same heel tactics back on the bad guys when they were like wronged. The only thing is like I didn't really recall like usually the way you do it from a logical standpoint is that like if they do something to you, you do the exact same thing back to them, but better and harder, Right. But this was him like, this came off as sneaky is the reason that I wasn't a fan of it, was because he reached and grabbed Hikuleo's hair and rolled him with the hair and pinned him and held the hair down. When that's like something that's like not like I'm a fiery badass babyface and I'm gonna fuck you up. This is like I'm a dastardly, sneaky, sniveling heel kind of move. I didn't think it was a good fit for a good guy.
Yeah, I think the problem is they want Hikuleo to continue to look strong,
be protected.
Yeah, and have an out for why he lost this match. I'm sure they'll have a rematch on the line. But if you want Hikuleo protected, then don't book this match and don't beat him.
Yeah, there's no reason. I don't think there's any reason he couldn't beat Fred Rosser.
Right.
It's Fred Rosser.
Or feed him somebody else. Like there's tons of people that they have on that show that they could give Hikuleo to get a win.
I think Fred Rosser's been pretty good on the show.
Yeah, I think so too.
He's fine, but like in the hierarchy of the company, I don't see any reason Hikuleo couldn't have just beat him. But I'm sure they probably will do some return match down the road. So
yeah.
The main event though, the one everyone was anticipating and waiting for, El Phantasmo taking on Lio Rush.
All right, you had your hot take on Lio Rush. So what'd you think here?
It held firm. It held strong. This match was fine. Maybe I'm wrong here. I think I liked the J-Cup match better than this match.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like there's a little bit more like just hype and buzz behind the J-Cup match. And
they got
intrigue.
More time here.
Yeah.
They definitely got more time to do more things. But I don't know if that was even necessarily a good thing. Like, it was just kind of there. Like, it was fine. I guess the thing that was good about it was, kind of the storytelling with ELP beating him using the sudden death again. But, I mean, there was nothing outstanding in this match. And I saw a lot of people kind of, like, exactly what I've been talking about. Like, because of Lio Rush's...
like name and past and reputation.
Yeah, because of his reputation. That's the word I was looking for. Because of his reputation, people they overhype his shit. This wasn't, I wouldn't call it bad, but people were like, that was a great main event. It was okay.
It was fine.
It was in line with anything else that I've ever seen from fucking, New Japan Strong.
It wasn't as far as that 6-man from last year.
No, not at all.
But yeah, I mean, I thought it was fine. One thing I like, and I know it's because it's how it's taped, but like at this point, like ELP has already like named the sudden death, and it's kind of like there's a story behind it, and like none of that was mentioned on commentary at all.
Well, that's because this was recorded in December before he.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I understand it's because of the, but
which good on them, this is something that they had foresight into, and they kind of knew that they were going to be going with when they did the recording in December prior to Wrestle Kingdom, which is really what the kickoff of. I mean, yeah, he'd kind of been doing that in the feud with Suzuki-gun, but it kind of really started with like Hiromu Takahashi.
Right, yeah.
In fact, I think the Hiromu stuff happened before the because that was on the New Beginning tour. So yeah, that was like the actual official start of this whole thing.
Right. I mean, he was teasing it on Strong, and then the real like startup was during the Hiromu match.
Yes. So I mean, and with that all being the case, you know, I guess what I was trying to say was like good on them for trying to keep a sense of continuity between the different shows and having that, sense of presence to do that ahead of time, because, you know, that's one of the complaints we've had about Strong is the fact that there are continuity errors because of the way it's like shot beforehand.
Yeah. So then moving on, this coming up Friday, the 26th, we have the big show here with the main event for the IWGP US title. Jon Moxley finally defending against KENTA. We also got Ren Narita versus Chris Dickinson in the semi-main, and then opening the show is going to be Brody King, ACH, and the Regal Twins taking on the DKC, Kevin Knight, Clark Connors, and TJP. On Chris Dickinson, we had a question from Don Diesel 86. Can we please get Chris Dickinson in the G1 this year? Dude is so believable.
I think Chris Dickinson is great. I wouldn't be opposed to him being in the G1 whatsoever. I think that would be great. But I also think if he does end up in the tournament, people kind of have to temper their expectations. He would go into that tournament and be like a 2 to 4 point guy.
Yeah.
And not because he's not great or anything like that.
Because he's so low on the totem pole.
He's so low on the totem pole. Like, I don't know if I could see them realistically. And people are going to think I sound crazy when I say this, but if you're watching, I sound completely, this makes all the sense in the world. You can't put Chris Dickinson in over Yoshihashi based on the work that Yoshihashi has done over 2020 and 2021. There's just no fucking way that can happen. And Yoshihashi probably Yoshihashi at this point, he's the litmus test of like, he's probably the last guy or one of the last couple guys that's going to get in when they start making their cuts. And you kind of have to ask yourself within the kayfabe of the company and the spots that are given, you're going to put in an outsider over Yoshihashi? Yes or no? Jeff Cobb is a yes. Right now, Chris Dickinson's a no. Maybe, I think it's too soon.
Yeah. We'll see what happens, but I do think he would be a great addition into the tournament and would have some fire matches.
A lot of things could change if they decided to bring him to Japan, say now as a surprise in whatever capacity or role.
Build him up.
Maybe he's in the New Japan Cup. Totally different story, different scenario. Then we're talking about like within a matter of months he could be a shoo-in.
Right.
If they wanted to give him that kind of push. But I haven't heard anything,
Yeah, I haven't heard anything either. And yeah, I think, again, he could fit the mold of just one of those guys I want to keep on the U.S. show for now.
He's so good, though.
Yeah, he's awesome.
I have concern that they've got what is this, the first, they got a 8-man tag and then another singles before they do Moxley and Kenta. So we had wanted them to really
dedicate the whole hour, yeah.
Or at least I would have been fine with it being a 2-match show.
Yeah, open up with Narita and Dickinson and then
give them like 10 minutes and then give the rest of the half hour to Moxley and Kenta. They don't even have to go half an hour. I'm talking
hype video, promos, recaps,
walkouts,
what's happened on Dynamite and all this stuff.
And they go a solid maybe 15 to 20 or whatever it is that they probably 20-ish, maybe a little more than that. But I don't know if that's what it. I mean, they could get these other matches done quick.
Right.
Dickinson's probably going to beat Narita, I'm guessing. Although, I don't know. Narita beat Bateman, so it's hard to say. And then the 8-man, whatever that will end up being, who knows? So maybe they will get a good portion of time.
Yeah, I hope so.
That being the case, we got some questions here regarding Moxley and Kenta. This is like the most anticipated episode of Strong of all time.
Yeah.
Wiz Factor asked us, wasn't able to ask this last week, but in light of the TV ratings during the Kenta match on Dynamite, can we really say that the Forbidden Door is good business, at least for Tony Khan? I get that Kenta isn't the best that New Japan can offer, and the match happened on impeachment trial night, but do we have any indication that an ongoing partnership between the two promotions makes business sense and isn't just for the hardcore fans?
Yeah, so obviously we don't really have any, hard evidence to really point to say this is going to be good for AEW's business. But you got to think with the right guys, the right programs, the right feuds, that it will be an increase in TV ratings. Obviously, live events is kind of hard right now because they're only doing a certain capacity and it's all Daily's place. But I think, bringing over a New Japan guy, if this was a pre-pandemic time, they would, pop a house and it would help sell out whatever arena they're going to.
This question it's a good question. It makes sense, but then there's a lot of things that you do have to think about, and you threw out some of them and they are valid. It's not like they're not valid. The fact that they were on the impeachment trial night. There's also the fact that we discussed last week that they didn't necessarily hype up his coming to, I was about to say Impact, to AEW, So there's probably an unfamiliarity with who he is and everything like that. But at the same time, this is kind of how you introduce characters. It's not historically always been the case that when you do something that's new, fresh, and exciting, that it always translates immediately to higher ratings. It would be a fallacy if I were to tell you, let me ask you, Jeremy, what do you think's like the most prolific promo of the last 10 years, 15 years? The one that sticks out to probably most people if you ask them that are hardcore fans.
Maybe Pipe Bomb?
It's definitely the Pipe Bomb. Do you think that their ratings went up at all within the next month?
No.
They didn't do anything. I don't think the buy rate for Money in the Bank that year was significantly greater either. But it made Punk a colloquial hero. And long term, they did big business with him. Big business. And that's because they put in the investment initially, and then they gave it enough time to kind of unfold. And I still think they fucked up a lot of what they did with him, and he could have been a bigger deal than he ended up being.
Right.
So, just because they did one angle and then the next week they did a match and the match didn't do well, it doesn't mean it's a failure or that is a key indicator of what a working relationship between the two biggest, companies outside of WWE could potentially be. I don't see, I think the question the question you asked is there any indicator that this would be bad for business? I think
that's an indicator that it would be good for business.
I think the question you have to ask, is there any indicator that it would not be good for business? Because from all logical standpoints, how could it not be?
Right.
Because excitement, surprises, and things like that have always been a part of what draws and excites wrestling fans. And, we talk about this idea of what a hardcore is. Well, the hardcores are the people that are diehards now. But there was a time where there were a lot more hardcores than there are now. There were 9 million watching every Monday night. And I think at one point there was 9 on, 7, 8 on one side and 6, 5 on the other side. So you're talking about 11, 12, 13 million people watching WWE and watching WCW, plus whatever, fringe lunatics were trading tapes and watching ECW back then.
Right.
So you're talking about a lot more people. And a lot of that was driven off the backs of surprises and excitement and changes and jumps and, and that stuff is good for business. And I think what Tony Khan and them are doing and investing in working with other companies has proven to be good in the short term, at least for Impact and some of these other groups and definitely the workers. But I think long term, it's going to be something that betters the business. And I think it's smart and a good idea for New Japan to be part of that.
Yeah, and like you're saying, right now there's just not enough, evidence to prove that it wasn't good for business. And I don't think there's going to be any evidence that comes out that's going to be bad for business. I don't think, bringing, Tanahashi on TV is going to lower their ratings or make people less inclined to go to Daily's Place to, watch AEW. I think it's going to, eventually, we're going to see the signs. You're going to see the ratings. You're going to see the tickets. You're going to see the merchandise. You're going to see the pay-per-view buy rates. Like, there's going to be business to come. Like you say, it's a long-term play. The thing's not going to happen overnight.
I will admit, I thought it was puzzling that they didn't do better, because for me, I thought this was an exciting angle, but obviously I'm a New Japan mark. But what it tells me is that there's probably a learning curve for, people that are only maybe accustomed to the AEW product, and they're not going to be initially drawn in by an outsider. But at the same time, you do a match like the match they had, which was awesome. And then you keep doing these surprises and you start to condition your audience to learn, hey, I might not know who XYZ wrestler is, but every time they've done this,
it's been awesome.
Now I'm learning that I need to know who these people are, and it becomes like you want to be on the inside because that's the cool thing. And that's how you grow your base and your audience to potentially, be the hardcores. You want more hardcores than just the hardcores you have now. Another thing too I thought about is back in WCW's day, a lot of the people that ended up being like the top stars, right? Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Jericho, Dean Malenko, all these different names. They were people that the casual fans would watch WCW and see them and complain.
Think they're geeks, yeah.
Think they were geeks and complain about them. And long term, they ended up being like the guys that carried the business and were some of the biggest stars, Benoit, people like that, for WWE because they got utilized differently. So I also think that there could be that possibility where just because initially people see Kenta and they're not drawn to him doesn't necessarily mean that is the overall indicator of what this partnership could mean for business for both sides. My one thing is I still just want whatever this ends up being to align with whatever New Japan's goals are as a company long term, because I still think that they need to try and get a television deal on US television.
Right. Well, that leads into what we're going to talk about right next in the news. So
before you do that, did you want to give your prediction for this match?
Oh yeah. I'm going to go with Kenta getting the win here.
I have Kenta winning as well. I'm guessing through some sort of nefarious means.
Yeah, I would be pretty surprised if they kept it on Moxley.
I'll pretty much be flabbergasted.
Yeah, which just means that...
What if that was like the deal? Like, you can use Mox, but he's got to retain.
That could be it. Could we see Kenny Omega come in and cost Mox a match?
I think I made a joke about that the other week, didn't I?
I think you did, yeah.
I think I might have, and I wouldn't know what to think about that.
Dude, think about that. Kenny Omega on New Japan programming again.
Well, it wouldn't not make sense because they've got a huge match coming up for pay-per-view, and that's not far away, so maybe that's been the plan all along. If that happens, and this was shot in December, that's going to tell us a lot about the timeline of this working relationship, this deal.
Yeah. But speaking of deals, and you mentioned you want to see New Japan back on, American television, getting a TV deal. Well, in the news, there's been significant talks between New Japan and Access Television, which it used to be on. Access wants New Japan back, which means we will be seeing more partnerships with New Japan and Impact. This past week we saw FinJuice make their debut on Impact. There's no deal at this time, but there are talks enough to where the odds are considered decent. A deal might end up being reached. This also coincides with Impact's on its history shows on Access featuring more New Japan talent. They've done stuff showing AJ Styles versus Hiroshi Tanahashi. That happened in the past in TNA. That was in 2006, and so they've been showing a lot of Tanahashi and some of the guys that have come over from New Japan on a lot of their highlight content or featured historical content. So could potentially be seeing New Japan back on Access.
With that being the case, this past week FinJuice defeated the Reno Scum in a tag team match. It was short, sweet, pretty good, but nothing. I would say if and the cool thing is it's on New Japan World now. So
right, yeah, there's a Impact Wrestling section now.
Yeah, so if you want to watch that, that's available to you.
Yeah, I watched it on New Japan World.
And after the match was over, the Good Brothers came out. They're the Impact World Tag Team Champions. That's Guns and Gallows, Luke Gallo, Carl Anderson, and Luke Gallows. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I'm having a weird night tonight. And then they kept referencing the fact that when they were in New Japan, FinJuice, they were the young boys, basically.
Yeah.
And then, FinJuice cut a promo about how they're no longer young boys and, maybe they're going to come after those titles. So,
yeah. So definitely a program there. So, yeah, we're seeing New Japan and Impact working together. There could be a potential to get New Japan back on Access, which we know at the time was, a great program for Access. So it'll be interesting to see if that's where they end right back up.
So we've also got news stories revolving comments from Cody, Tony Khan, and Kenny Omega. You want to kind of paraphrase what's going on with them? It's more open door talk, I guess.
Yeah, so with Cody, kind of to paraphrase here, his main gist of what he was interviewed about was talking about the potential of New Japan working together. Essentially he does think that there could be, once travel restrictions are lifted, there could be some crossover matches. There's definitely some dream matches that are available. But he does want to keep the focus on AEW. He doesn't want to overlook, the talented roster that they have right now. But, he's a big fan of Tanahashi, wants to, face Tanahashi, Okada, and talks about the great guys like Jay White and Ishii and Ibushi that they could do stuff with. But essentially, he's saying, potentially guys could come over and they could do crossover, but he doesn't want to focus on the AEW roster they have right now.
Yeah, he mentioned that they don't even have enough time right now to feature all the talent that they have signed currently, and so they're trying to focus on that. But, there is the potential. Obviously, creatively, there's a lot of potential between, the different matchups they could do.
Yeah, then Tony Khan, he was on Wrestling Observer Live today. He was saying, AEW and the New Japan relationship is in effect, but travel restrictions are preventing talent from being exchanged. Once they are lifted, get ready for some surprises.
Now, this is an interesting thing, and this I saw a lot of people on Twitter and stuff, especially New Japan diehards, really mad about this one. But it's interesting because Kenny Omega's comments from a recent interview, I don't know exactly when, they kind of sound totally opposite of what Tony Khan's saying, but based on the two, I think I get a pretty good picture
There's
of what's
somewhere in the middle of.
So he basically said that the agreement is not a full-blown talent exchange. So he's acknowledging that there is an agreement in place, and he talked about how there is definitely going to be some talent that's exchanged. Some people that will be what it sounds like based on his comments is that some talent has been agreed to be exchanged between the two companies for whatever purposes there are, but that's pretty much it. It's not like a full-blown
invasion angle.
Or not even just that, the ROH thing. You're not going to be seeing
War of the
Worlds type shows between the two companies on, New Japan World and then on BR Live and stuff like that just yet or anything like that. And so, I take it this way. I think both guys are telling the truth. And I think Tony Khan's smart in the one sense because he's like, oh yeah, the deal's done. Surprises are coming. He's not making any other promise than saying surprises are coming. Kenny Omega saying, well, some talent will be exchanged, but it's not a full-blown partnership. Well, both of those things can be true, but be, just on face value, received very differently. If you just heard what Tony Khan was saying, you would think oh yeah, they are partners. The forbidden door's open. Anything's possible. And maybe down the line, anything could be possible. But then, I think that it's what we've been saying all along. They are kind of working together, but for right now, it's pretty much just Mox and Kenta
Right.
Which is what they've been saying pretty much most of the time.
And Kenny was using my analogy about the door, and the door is cracked open. Things can slip through cracks. Guys can slip through between both promotions, but also nothing not a full blown thing here.
And given the amount of people that have it worked into their agreement with AEW to already have the ability to go to Japan and work for New Japan, that kind of makes things a little bit easier to facilitate as well.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure the Bucks have it. I'm sure Cody has it. I'm sure
Hangman probably has it.
Probably Kenny definitely has it. We know several other people do. Mox, obviously, Jericho.
Yeah.
So.
Then the Monday free match of the week, AJ Styles versus Kazuchika Okada. And then last thing here, Bloodsport 5 was this past weekend. And Josh, I know you watched that show. There were several New Japan guys featured on that show: Alex Coughlin, J.R. Kratos, Cobb, Moxley, Dave Boy Smith Jr.,
Dickinson, Romero. There was a lot. This show, vastly superior to Josh Barnett Bloodsport 4, which I watched that show. I felt a little bit gypped. I watched this show. It was still on the short side, an hour, a little over an hour and a half, like an hour, 40 minutes, basically, for the the $20 price tag or whatever, but still had a lot of the same issues that I had with the original Josh Barnett Bloodsport 4, but not all of them. They fixed quite a few of them. One of the things was just the match quality was outstanding top to bottom. In fact, I would even go as far as to say this might be like the second best Josh Barnett Bloodsport event that they've ever put on. Only behind the one where Barnett and Suzuki headlined. So this was very, very good. Alex Coughlin, I kind of had a little bit of a rough review for his match with J.R. Kratos the week before. This time, he wrestled Hoist Isaacs, and they meshed much, much better. He still is a little bit too pro wrestling-ish, too much of a Young Lion style wrestling for this more MMA centric thing, but he held his own. He did well. He eventually lost, but it was a much better showing than the JR Kratos match. And I thought it was probably the best match I've ever seen of Alex Coughlin so far.
Oh, nice.
I would go maybe like 3.5, 3 3/4, something like that. This stuff is hard to rate. They're short matches and they're a different style of pro wrestling. So, I mean, my ratings, I looked on Cage Match stuff. I think on Grapple, they got around like the 3 1/4-ish. But Simon Grimm and Rocky Romero, very good. Simon Grimm is one of the absolute best guys at this style. And Rocky Romero's never done it, but, with all of his experience, he's very adaptable. And he's got a lot of, I think he might even had MMA fights. I can't remember. But this wasn't as MMA-ish as you would think it might be. It was much more closely akin to some of the matches he's had with Tom Lawler, maybe like the Dana Bryan match from Best of the American Super Juniors from back in the day.
Yeah.
Very, very technical, very hard hitting. I thought this was great too. J.R. Kratos and Chris Dickinson, pretty good. Some people probably like this a little bit better than I did. I thought that of all the New Japan-centric matches, it was the lowest, but that doesn't by any means mean that it wasn't good. The one thing I've always said about Dickinson in these Bloodsport matches, he needs somebody that's willing to slug with him, and J.R. Kratos was. And they went out there and they fucking laid it in for real. It was pretty great. And then the top 2 matches, Jeff Cobb against... what was on this show?
I'm trying to remember who Cobb faced off against.
I've got it here in the gallery.
It was a New Japan person, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, they pretty much had... Okay, here it was. Jeff Cobb against Tom Lawler.
Yeah, that's right.
Very, very good. Tom Lawler is just one of the absolute... I mean, Tom Lawler, in my opinion, is the best American shoot style guy when it comes to Bloodsport shows. Cobb still had a lot of the same issues as the first show. I just think, he's so amateur wrestling heavy and doesn't know enough of, the catch stuff, doesn't know if the submission grappling, and his striking's not on that level, but he's got such a presence and a look and a athleticism, he still can hang. But I just don't think he is quite at the same level. But Lawler carried him to like, and normally I wouldn't say Lawler carried him, you know,
Right.
in a traditional wrestling match, but in this style, I think Lawler carried him to tell a really great story, and Lawler attacked his legs. I'm trying to remember who won. I'm pretty sure Jeff Cobb like beat him by slamming him. I don't remember, but the match was very good. It was a great semi-main event. And then the main event was Moxley against Davey Boy Smith Jr. And this ruled, probably one of the best Bloodsport matches. I went 4 stars on it. It's in a very easy early excursion match of the year contender, provided Mox qualifies. We'll talk about it later in the year, but yeah, Mox bladed in this match, which was fucking nuts. Davey Boy Smith was raining elbows from full mount, and he covers his head to protect himself, and he goes belly down, and they cut to a different camera angle. And like my trained eye, I know what a blade job looks like,
Right.
but they're doing a good job because he's covering up. He's turtling up is what they call it in MMA. So he's turtling up with both arms to make it look like he's trying to avoid punches. And then they show Davey Boy raining punches, but it's on the far side from where the camera is. So it looks like he's hitting him, but I'm pretty sure he's just hitting the mat. And in the meantime, Mox is blading. And then Mox rolls back over to avoid those punches that he's raining down on the right side. And then when he comes up, he's bleeding. And like they did it. It's one of the best like blade jobs I've seen. Like obviously I was able to detect it. I saw a lot of people online thinking it was shoot, like that he busted him open like Terry Funk Hardaway. He did not, for sure. But the match was awesome. Jon Moxley sucks at shooting. He sucks at it. He is he's the least qualified of anybody here. He cannot do shoot style. But, you know, it's GCW. They like to incorporate like Mad Men. They've had Homicide and like Nick fucking Gage and people like that do Bloodsport. And like what Moxley lacks in actual skill and finesse and technique, he makes up for by just being violent. And this was one of the most violent matches that like they were doing headbutts, elbows, punches, kicks, everything. And yeah, he beat Davey Boy Smith with a paradigm shift and retained or you know, won the main event. It was awesome. If you guys haven't seen it, you got to check that out.
Yeah, I plan on checking that out this week. And also news came out of that show that Bloodsport 6 here in our home city of Tampa, Florida, is going to be happening with the main event of Josh Barnett versus Jon Moxley, the fight that they've been trying to do for quite some time now, but keeps getting pulled off either due to injury or a pandemic. And so it seems like the fight's going to happen here, Tampa, Ybor City, WrestleMania weekend. Are you going to see Mox versus Barnett?
Possibly. So I haven't gone to wrestling really aside from, well, I mean, practice, but like I haven't been to really any live shows or anything like that. But one of the things is like for WrestleMania weekend, I'm kind of considering some of the shows they're doing just because GCW is running at the Cuban Club, which is an outdoor event. They're going to be 30% occupied and distanced and outdoors and mask required and, you know, sanitation station. So that sounds fairly safe to me compared to what I think almost everybody else that's running WrestleMania weekend, they're all indoors.
Yeah, not the best setup.
So yeah, that's kind of my one thing. So I don't know if I'm gonna like spend precious like PTO to take off for this WrestleMania weekend, especially considering like not a lot of the shows are worthy of that.
Dude, it just does not look good.
But I might do it. I might do it for that show, depending on what the card looks like. I mean, I might even buy a ticket early just because, you know, it's probably gonna sell out.
Right, you could always sell a ticket if it don't end up going side and go.
Yeah.
So yeah, that wraps up the news. I have some quick questions here, and then we get to a recommended match of the week. So question here from Reddit user D_3_Jen. As we get close to wrestling's 1-year anniversary of the COVID era, what do you think that NJPW has done well during the pandemic, and how can they improve going forward? Answers about keeping evil away from the title picture are cop-outs. I'm surprised that I haven't seen them selling / giving some type of noisemakers to the crowds to have something other than clapping, and I think they could help the atmosphere.
Well, what do you think?
So I think that New Japan has done a good job with COVID. As far as the noisemakers, like they have given them the Thunder Sticks recently to some of the shows, so that's helped in some of the bigger shows. As far as during when they came back with empty arena wrestling, I thought the New Japan Cup stuff I thought went off very well. They are some of the best empty arena wrestling going, and then incorporating the fans, and the fans have done certain cities have done a great job, with the clapping and bringing some energy to the shows, to the matches for the big shows. And so yeah, overall, I can't really complain about how New Japan's has done as far as like their bigger shows in happening during the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with pretty much most of the things that you're saying there as far as what they've done well, especially given the unique set of situations and circumstances that they have in Japan as opposed to, like, say, in the States. So, I mean, it's different for them than, say, like AEW or WWE. Some things that they can improve upon going forward. Well, I'll tell you one thing. I don't like the caveat that we can't say something on our show. Or because he said like answers about, Evil being taken from the title picture are a cop out. Well, no, that's not a cop out if that would actually improve the product.
Yeah.
And I think that that's been one of the most detrimental things for the product this past year. That being said, if it were me, because I mean, let's be realistic. They've already established him as a top guy. They're gonna be using him as a top guy. So we got to at least kind of make peace with that or get pissed off and stop watching. Those are like your two choices.
Right.
So if I was them, I would just make his matches be better. Like, stop relying so heavily on all the tropes. Maybe have someone work with him on his heeldom because, I mean, Jay White's better at it than he is. And there's quite a few, entertaining heels in Bullet Club and on the roster. So I would focus on maybe him going back to having more athletic matches. I'm not saying don't cheat. I'm just saying, like, it doesn't have to be a fucking garrote wire every single fucking match.
Right. I think they could ease down on some of the interference, some of the DQs, no counting out finishes.
Yeah, for sure. They're doing a lot of protective style booking, which isn't what they would typically do. And I think maybe it's because of the limited roster. One other thing, kind of like compelling outside the box stories. People seem to be very excited about Jay White and Evil potentially feuding. Now they're kind of like
buddy
and good. And we never really got a reason for that. At least if they were going to become buddy, there should have at least been some sort of storyline progression that brought them together and resolved what had been teased at the G1 last year. Instead, we got nothing. We no real progression. It seemed like once Wrestle Kingdom season came along and G1 was over, that shit got put on ice.
Right.
But I think that was something that a lot of people are looking forward to. We got questions about it all the time. I think potentially bringing in selective outsiders for selective roles isn't a bad idea at all. I think that's something that they could improve upon. As far as the noise situation, I think it is what it is. I don't see how a noisemaker is very different from clapping because they're not audible expressions to show their taste or distaste, or it's not the same as a boo.
Right. Or even a cheer.
Or a cheer. Yeah. Or chanting a wrestler's name or chanting anything. So it's
right.
I think that's kind of a moot point. But I don't have a lot that I can really add because they're doing the best they could.
Yeah.
One thing I would say, and they're not going to do this, but stop doing the double shows if you don't have the cards and the talent to do the double shows for the big ones. Just do the big events.
Right. Like, yeah, combine those.
People get more excited, way more excited when you have one excellent show, top to bottom, with lots of memorable stuff than if you sparse that out and put it over 2 nights. Because then they're only going to get excited about a couple things, but then they're going to say the shows themselves were a drag and the perception of the overall product is lower.
Right. There's only 1 or 2 highlights per night instead of having
several.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I think they tried to remedy that a little bit with this Castle Attack format, and kind of put everything on one night and give us a little taste on the first night, which I think was okay. But the injuries kind of fucked him. So
yeah. He also asked, he said, Josh ended up being right on the money when Derek Lewis knocked out Curtis Blades. Any predictions ahead of UFC 259?
That's interesting. I couldn't recall what I said on the show, but I think I did say that I kind of thought
you were leaning towards Lewis, yeah.
Yeah, well, because it was a firefight and any one of those two guys could knock each other out. But I've seen Derek Lewis eat a lot of fucking shit and be fine, but Blades gets hit and he usually like goes to sleep. I've seen several people drop him and knock him out. So UFC 259, I think that's the show that I'm going to look it up. I know there's a show that I'm very excited about very soon. It's the one with Lahovic and Adesanya. Yeah. I cannot wait for this. Let me see what the actual card is. This card is probably going to be the best card of the year. And
yeah, so looks like there's 3 championship fights.
Yeah, you got Lahovic and Adesanya, Amanda Nunes and Megan Anderson, Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling, and the rest of it should be fine. I mean, Thiago Santos is fighting Rajic or whatever his name is, and Dominic Cruz is on the preliminary card, which is pretty crazy. So this one's tough. I really don't know who to predict for the light heavyweight title. I'm gonna go with Israel Adesanya just because I think he's one of the most talented stand-up strikers I've ever seen. But Lahovic is, oh my God, bro. Like, it's crazy. He's just a fucking tank. And if he hits Adesanya is not really a big middleweight, you know?
Yeah, he's pretty slim.
He does have height. He's got a tall frame.
Got that range.
But Lahovic fucks people up. I mean, Adesanya, striked at a much higher level than the UFC in his previous, career. So it's not like he's never been hit by serious guys. But I mean, the jump from middleweight to light heavyweight is 20 pounds. And very few guys have. I'm trying to even think. Aside from Anderson Silva, I can't think of too many guys in the UFC's history that have really successfully made that middleweight to light heavyweight jump. And nobody's ever won both of those titles, and it's got to be one of the most treacherous jumps ever. So I wouldn't even be down on Adesanya if he didn't win. I think the longer the fight goes, the more it's in favor of Adesanya. But I just think the odds lean towards Adesanya, maybe even outstriking this guy with speed and skill, kind of like what he did to Thiago Santos. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. Lahovic could really brutalize him. It's a scary fight.
Yeah, I haven't really seen Israel take a lot of big shots.
I have.
And
I've seen him get knocked out before. In not in MMA, in kickboxing.
Okay. Yeah, since I've seen him UFC, I really haven't seen him take a ton of damage.
Were you there the night he fought Kevin Gastelum? It was a fight of the year. We were at it was after one of those Orpheum shows.
I can't remember.
We watched it with Sandy and
was that
Ava Story?
Yeah. I was there that night. Yeah.
Yeah, he got hit. He almost got stopped in that fight. You don't remember that?
No.
Yeah. But since then, I mean, not too many guys have really given him trouble. Megan Anderson, I mean, Amanda Nunes is going to run over her. Peter Yan, I like Peter Yan, but he's got holes. I've seen guys, that should have won rounds against him, should have won fights against him, but he's such a prolific striker and he's got dynamite in his hands. He's very explosive that he'll turn rounds where he's losing. I'm not saying convincingly. I'm just saying like he's getting outstruck or maybe the guy's coming forward, and then he'll connect and fuck people up and completely turn the round around, and he wins fights that way. I think I've got him over Aljamain Sterling. That should be a good fight. So, I mean, those are the 3 big fights. So that's going to be those are my predictions. I don't know about Thiago Santos against Rajic. We saw Santos fight John Jones in Dallas.
Yeah.
And he got his legs fucked up in that fight. And I don't know if he's fought since then, but Rajic is good. I've seen him before, but I don't really know what to expect. So I pretty much have Adesanya winning and then the other 2 champions retaining.
Yeah. Either way, it should be a pretty fun card there. Next question here from Viking Pain. This is a pretty random question, but I saw a clip of Kojima and Tenzan wrestling for the IWGP title and a triple crown title a while back. Kojima wins at the end, but things get really tense between him and Nagata. Then when Kojima begins to leave, he throws the IWGP title back into the ring, which promoted Nakamura and Tanahashi to snap and try to attack him. Was this a work or was this a legit shoot? If it was a shoot, why would New Japan want to do business with Kojima ever again?
This is kind of like one of those stories I've heard. I don't know the truth about it. So the deal was they were supposed to go to the time limit draw, reportedly. That was supposed to be the deal. And I think what ended up happening was like Tenzan allegedly got like shoot knocked out or shoot hurt and couldn't continue. And like with a couple minutes left to go, Kojima beat him. But I don't think Kojima was supposed to beat him. And so that like caused issues, and like it kind of became like from a work to a shoot. And then obviously there's also the aspect that like Kojima was with All Japan at the time, but he's a dojo boy, came from New Japan, but he's the Triple Crown champion at the time. And they're in the middle of their New Japan, All Japan war. So, he kind of shows disrespect and disdain for the IWGP title. He does throw it back in. I think part of it was that they say that in a shoot, like from the shoot aspect, he wasn't supposed to win. He didn't want the title. But then there's also like everything was very tumultuous. No one knew what was going on. And in his character and in his anger, he threw the title back. And then I saw Tanahashi talk about this in his Aces High series. Mm-hmm. And I think he alleged that his and Nakamura's reaction is very real. The rest of it, I don't know. I don't know because I could see it very plausibly all just being part of the ongoing All Japan, New Japan, war that was going on.
And that's right before the Tanahashi-Kojima match, right? That they set up for Wrestle Kingdom?
No, it's way before. This is like 2006-ish.
Gotcha.
2007.
I know they feuded, but it was way after that.
Yeah, this could even be like 2005. This is way. I mean, that match is after Kojima is done with All Japan and comes back to New Japan. So I mean, Nakamura and Tanahashi are like young when this happened. I mentioned this match a while back when people were asking for Kojima and Nagata recommendations a couple episodes back. But yeah, it's a very famous match because they went almost the full hour, but they didn't. But I don't know if it's a work or a shoot, to be honest with you. I mean, maybe Chris Charlton or someone who is more versed in this stuff would know a little bit better. I'm familiar with it, but I don't actually know the truth behind the backstory.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's better not to know and just let your
match. It comes off very real. Yeah. That's the thing I will say. It comes off as like very, very real. It doesn't mean it is. It might just be convincing, but yeah.
Next question here from Dundiesel86. Young boy, this one's for you. If you had the opportunity to have one training session with any wrestler in New Japan, who would it be and why?
That's a great question. I mean, probably Tanahashi. I mean, I don't know who's a good trainer or whatever, but I mean, if there's one person that I would want to learn from, I mean, I think he's the greatest storyteller of a generation.
Yeah. I mean, you can't go wrong with the ace.
Yeah, he's the ace.
Next question's here from Dom Homie 101.
Jeremy, if you could train with any wrestler in New Japan, who would it be?
Kojima.
Yeah.
Red Club, baby. Or Shibata. I mean, he's doing great.
I mean, I almost said Shibata initially.
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't you want to train a Shibata?
Right, and we've seen the work he's doing with those LA young lions. They're looking phenomenal right now, so.
Yeah.
Dom Hoy 101 asks, in your guys' honest opinion, should New Japan be worried about a company like Pro Wrestling Noah becoming a threat?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, Cyber Agent is for real. For real. I don't know how much, backing they're going to put behind them, but Noah is on a tear right now. And I mean, with all the other, it's not just Noah, it's Noah, DDT, Tokyo Joshi Pro. Yeah, I think that they should definitely be concerned about competition.
Yeah, definitely something to keep their eye out on. Like you said, it all depends on how much money Cyber Agent is going to pour into Noah, because I think we've seen similar situations like this, kind of like with Ring of Honor and Sinclair, where Sinclair is not really dumping a lot into Ring of Honor.
Right.
But yeah, if Cyber Agent decides, we want to compete against New Japan, we want to run bigger buildings and, blow this business up, then it's a very, threat that they need to, keep their eyes out on. Next question here. He says, hey, young boy, Canelo is fighting this weekend, and the buzz for this fight is at a 0. So instead of talking about the upcoming fight, let's talk about some fights that we actually want to see with Canelo.
Well, before you do that, I'm looking up this fight. He's fighting this guy Yildirim in it's a mandatory title defense. Bro, I didn't know this was happening. Avni Yildirim. I've never heard of this fighter. I'm not as high. I'm not as up on boxing in modern years as I have been on MMA, and even MMA is starting to kind of wane over the past couple of years. But I didn't even know this was happening. It's happening this weekend. I thought him and Billy Joe Saunders was a done deal. But what's his question?
So he said instead of talking about the upcoming fight, let's talk about some fights we actually want to see Canelo have, and Young Boy could pick a winner in these fights. So Canelo versus Caleb Plant at 168.
We can just go through them real quick. So Canelo and Caleb Plant 168. I'm not even as familiar with Caleb Plant. I guess I would probably take Canelo. 168 is I don't think he's done well at 168. So it's like I probably sound crazy for saying he shouldn't fight there, but I think it's too big for him. He's fucked some guys up there, but I think he should stay at 160. I think that's his prime weight. Jermell Charlo, I think he would probably beat Jermell Charlo, but that's Jermall Charlo, but that's tougher. At 160, 164, I think he's probably too much for Jermell, definitely. So I'd have him there. David Benavidez, I don't really know on that one. That's a tough fight for him. I probably favor Canelo against just about any fighter in the world right now. Errol Spence Jr., I think it really depends on the fight. If you got him at 160, I've definitely got Canelo. Errol Spence never fought at that weight class. If you did like a 154 fight or maybe like 155-ish, that might be a different story. Errol Spence is supremely talented, but he's never been hit by a guy like Canelo. So that one's tough. Terrence Crawford, though, at 160, geez, that's a toss-up. That's a 50-50. I don't know what to do with that one. I got Canelo over Demetrius Andrade as well. If he fought Andre Ward, even now, I think Andre Ward fucks him up, period. Andre Ward is way too much for him. Maybe 168 might be competitive. 175 is way too much. I don't think he's coming back at all. But if he did come back, I think he's like the one guy, like he would fuck up Canelo. You didn't throw this out there, but I'm pretty sure him and Billy Joe Saunders are going to fight. And that's a fight I'm very much looking forward to. And I'm kind of up in the air on who wins that one.
Nice. And his last question, thoughts on Oscar Valdez knockout win against Miguel Berchelt? Knockout reminded me of the Manuel Marquez knockout victory against Manny Pacquiao. Hopefully Oscar and his team isn't on the no black fighter list type of bullshit, and he fights Shakur Stevenson next.
Maybe, possibly. Yeah, I haven't really kept up with that weight class. I was out this past weekend in a outdoor masked, socially distanced, safe environment, and it was cold as fuck. And this fight was actually on, or the fights were on, and I was gonna stay to watch this fight, and it got late. And we went home, and then I saw the knockout, and I was like kind of blown away. Yeah, I actually, when I saw it, it did kind of remind me of Juan Manuel Marquez knocking out Manny Pacquiao. I don't have enough like thoughts really to kind of speak on this, but Shakur Stevenson is a beast, and we'll see what happens.
Nice. Well, let's wrap up things quickly here with recommended match of the week. Last week I recommended New Beginning 2014 Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Shinsuke Nakamura for the IWGP IC title.
Yeah, so this is a match I cannot remember if we reviewed this. when we were doing our concept shows when COVID hit last year. But I watched this and I've seen this several times, and it like I was like, I might have even just gone out of my way and watched it on my own, to be honest with you. But I know I've seen this recently. But this match is awesome. Tanahashi is coming into New Beginning in Hiroshima as the newly crowned IWGP Intercontinental Champion against former champion Shinsuke Nakamura. Tanahashi had defeated Nakamura for the title at Wrestle Kingdom. What was that? 7, 8? I think 8. And this match was awesome. I think it's vastly superior to the first match that they had in the sense that Nakamura is really determined to get his title back, and they tell an awesome story basically of Tanahashi going after the legs, Nakamura going after the arm, and Nakamura most likely looking for like the straight arm bar that he likes to hit. And, Tanahashi attacking the legs as he always does. Big moment in the match. He hits the double high fly flows, and Nakamura kicks out of it, which I think was probably the first time
dope.
anyone had done that yet. But this match really, really ruled. The crowd was super into it. Ultimately, Tanahashi still had enough in the tank to kind of get past Nakamura here and put a little bit of a exclamation point on his title win, that it wasn't a fluke victory at Wrestle Kingdom, and kind of make himself the man in the IC division for the time being. I'd probably go 4.5 on this.
Nice.
I think this match is incredible. If you guys haven't seen it, big recommendation. I think it's vastly superior to the Wrestle Kingdom match that they had, which is, been seen by a lot more people. The one gripe, I know a lot of people didn't like the finish. They felt like the finish was a little bit flat.
So I'm looking back on our Nakamura episode. We reviewed the Invasion Attack match from 2014.
And that's where he wins the title back from Tanahashi.
Right.
And Tanahashi acts like a heel.
Yeah, so he wins it for the third time there, yeah.
Yeah, that I do get these two matches confused, so that makes sense. So, yeah, awesome.
All right, what you got for us for this week?
Oh, man, I keep doing this, like not putting any like forethought into what I'm gonna pick. So let's go back into the match guide. Oh man. Why don't you give me a year and I'll give you a good match to recommend?
95.
Didn't you pick 95 last time?
Yeah, I think I might have actually. Go.
You know what?
80, no, do 89.
Nah, it's fine. We've done 89. I'm gonna give you the Akira Maeda versus Tatsumi Fujinami match from June 12th, 1986.
All right.
Nope. You know what? I'm sorry. I always get this one confused. That's not the match I want to give you. Oh yeah, that is the match. I'm sorry. Fujinami against Akira Maeda. Yes.
1986.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, this is one of the greatest 80s matches, period, for any company. And I believe we watched this match in the past years ago, but it was like late night after like being out watching an Orpheum show and drinking and everything like that. So I want you to watch it with fresh eyes.
In the right state of mind.
Yeah.
Well, all right. We'll check that out for recommended match of the week. That's going to wrap things up.
This is 100% the match. I looked it up just now. That's the match.
All right. It's on New Japan World?
Yeah.
All right.
For sure this time.
All right. So we'll check that out. We'll review that next week. Also, next week we'll be back to review both nights of Castle Attack. We'll review the Moxley KENTA match and talk about all the latest news happening in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. So if you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate. Click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media. On Twitter, we're at KI Strong Style. The network is at Social Suplex. You can follow me at Jeremy L. Donovan. On Facebook, we're facebook.com/Social Suplex. In the Wrestling Squared Circle, we're facebook.com/group/Wrestling Squared Circle. On Instagram, we're at Social Suplex. On Reddit, I'm the Pill Black Guy. Josh is Keeping It Strong Style. You can email me, Jeremy, at socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We have One Nation Radio, which is by Rich Latta and James Boyd. The Ricky and Clyde Wrestling Show from Scotland. The Grave Consequences Podcast with Caleb and Maserati, breaking down Lucha Underground. The 8-Bit Suplex with Josh No. 2 and Sandy, covering all things Impact and video games. We have All Things Elite with Floyd and Austin. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review, and we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Itchy Bond.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.